Peace. I'll wait for a few people to get here. Peace. Greetings to everybody. We're going to get started in a second. Hold on. Make sure that light is bright. All right. Peace, Brother Duma. Peace, Gypsy Goddess, Black Quartz. We're going to get started. Just waiting. Give a few minutes for everybody to get here. Peace, Alchemista. My. You have to bear with me, little allergies going on. All this, getting all this rain and all this damn pollen and shit. So just bear with me with that. Just set this up. Make sure I got this flowing. All right. All right. Well, we got a decent amount of people here to start. Again, peace. If I ain't greet you personally. Peace. Well, first and foremost, for those that came out and helped with the ritual on Friday night, I want to thank everybody that came out, helped out, especially cleaning up, which that's not the fun part. Ritual was, like I say, a lot of energy. The objective for that particular ritual was to use the aspect of the road opener to open those gates. So we petitioned the road opener to open those gates so we can all collectively and individually go down that path in order to achieve things, remove any of them blockages and open those gates. We already have the next ritual planned, and that flyer should be done in a few days. So the next one that we will be doing is going to be on I believe it's the 28th. Let me just double check. Just want to make sure I got the right date. I don't want to give out the wrong date. Just going to do that real quick while we wait for some more people. Well, we got plenty of people here, but hold on. Let me just get the date for that. I don't want to give out wrong information. Looking at the calendar. Hold on. I have it saved right here, formatted. All right, so yeah, it's going to be Friday, September 28th, and this is going to be, the ritual is titled, there's a couple of parts to the ritual, The Powers of Darkness and the Living Bob, the Black Adept Ritual. This is going to be kind of intense. It's going to be dealing with invoking, quote unquote, dark magical entities. Which is going to be a switch up from some things that we've done in the past. So that's going to be the ritual on September 28th. On the 15th, it's either going to be the 15th or the 22nd, we will have our next drumming out on the beach. And then we have a class right there afterwards. It's kind of a fun event. You can bring family, friends, kind of more like a kickback, chill, kind of relaxed thing, but we still get some spiritual work in. And then we are going to be also going to look at the date once a month. We're also going to be having classes, just regular classes where you can come and ask questions on whatever topics, as long as it's in relation to the stuff, obviously, that we talk about on the channel. Occasionally, we get some religious nuts that will show up and they get their feelings hurt and they wind up leaving. For those that will be attending them classes, what I'm gonna do is set a set like Friday or Saturday, the same once a month, the same like second or third weekend of the month, to keep it the same time, so those that plan or want to attend can come. But I want to make it clear, if you come to those classes, we're going to be talking about subject matter here, but it'll be more into reaction where people can actually, have a little more personal interaction. So we're going to set a date for that. But the next ritual will be, and I like to put it out there as early as I can for those people that might be traveling or want to come from out of state. We had a couple of people that came to this past ritual this Friday from out of state. It was actually Sister Trina and her husband. So this way, if you are planning to come to that ritual, it gives you time to travel. So again, that's going to be on Friday, September 28th, 8 o'clock. That flyer will go out in the next day or two. Again, by invite only. You have to obviously email us so we can briefly talk to you and make sure this is something that you want to participate in. And not only that, and I like to reiterate this, so we can keep things organized. We just want random people showing up. That's all. It's not for any other particular reason. Other than that, so yeah, like I say, it was, like I say, it's energy. When you work with voodoo spirits, it's the best way I can put it in description. It's hard to really explain it and put it into words. I know a couple people here, such as Sister Trina. I know Maya was there. I'm not sure who else is in here, but I know there was a few people there that are in the room right now. All right, so having said that, also, okay, last thing, and again, spiritual consultations or readings. There's going to be an upcoming fall winter session for classes. For all that information, you can email me. It's right in the description box. KHNUM19@gmail.com. All right, so what I wanted to talk about tonight, title kind of speaks for itself. This kind of gets into, again, I'm not going to go, I got a small amount of information prepared, but this is kind of, you can use this methodology, and this really applies to all systems of magic. This really applies to whatever spiritual system you are using. You could be using vampirism. You could be using Luciferian magic. You can be using Heka, Egyptian black magic. You could be using traditional systems of witchcraft. You could be using African spiritual systems of witchcraft, Udon. Whatever methodology, the aspect of what we're going to get into tonight can be applied, the methodology, to any of those systems. I'm going to use a book. I'm going to take some excerpts from a book called The Dark Arts. And let me make sure I got the author's name correct. Hold on. Richard Cavendish. Some of you might have this book. I've mentioned it in the past, never really have gone over, but it's called The Black Arts by Richard Cavendish. And I'm going to go through some of that information. I'm going to go to some stuff in the beginning, skip around a little bit. I'm reading a digital format, so if you have a hard copy, don't really know what page to tell you. But I'm going to be in chapter 1 and take some excerpts from the beginning, because this is basically, if you want to say, this universal information here that any black magician can really apply. Now, the reason why, as I've said the last couple of weeks, I try not to as much use that word left-hand path anymore. And my reasons, because of what it's associated with. When you hear black magic, witchcraft, and sorcery, people automatically, convey that with more darker, intenser stuff. And that's what you want. You want people to convey that with that type of information. The only reason why, I know it'll come out sometimes, I'll say it, but I try not to. We are adepts of the black arts. We are black magicians. That's what we do. I'm trying, as I said in a couple videos back, I'm trying not to really use that term, openly, or really identify. I've even taken it out of the description box of my videos for the last several videos, is because that still gets associated with, Euro-Satanism. And what we do here, what we practice, has nothing to do with that. Because as you've heard me say many times before, that's not real left-hand path. A lot of that stuff is even more religious, or than religion itself. Now, I know when we say left-hand path, we know what we mean. But it's more so for the sake maybe of newbies and newcomers, because that sometimes can, scare individuals away that might, especially melanated individuals, blacks, Latinos, etc., Asians, or anybody of other ethnicity that practices this path, that might scare them away or shy them away, I should say. So I try to use that term a little more. Now, of course, you're going to hear left-hand path here and there, but I'm trying to shy away from that for those reasons, and that's pretty much it. So again, when you say black magic, sorcery, and witchcraft, that's let them go to Africa, let them think voodoo, let them think all that shit that fears them. I'm talking about the ignorant people, because that is what we do. But it's a beautiful spiritual system, as opposed to the contrary, what illusionary, what people in their mind believe. You understand? I added Sonia, you as the moderator. I can see you in here because I know you'll facilitate. But anyway, so we're going to go chapter 1, the world of the black magician. Let's go over some of this information. All right. The driving force behind black magic is the hunger for power. All right. But let's establish what power is, because power can consume you. You understand? But power also can be a very volatile energy that can transform you if used right. Now, you've heard the abuse of power. Every magician objective is to obtain some power. But the question is, it's not that it's, if you know what you're doing on this path, it's not that getting the power is hard to obtain. Facilitating and using it correctly is what the issue is. Its ultimate aim was stated appropriately enough by the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve were afraid that if they ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they would die. But the serpent said, "Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, that your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil." Now, this is a quote you will see in a lot of circles, and I found it when I came across this in this guy's book. I've always brought this point up. When you read this quote, Christians fail to realize this character that they're calling the devil here. Now, we're dealing with the serpent. We're dealing with Kundalini energy. We're tying it in to what we know spiritually on this path. But technically, if we look at this from a religious standpoint, quote unquote, this religious character called the devil, who they think is some type of serpent, actually didn't lie, because he was telling the truth. The one that was actually lying, which most religious people won't own up to in this quote, God was actually the deceiver of the lie, the God of the Bible, right? But let's continue on. In occultism, the serpent is a symbol of wisdom. And for centuries, magicians have devoted themselves to the search for the forbidden fruit, which would bring fulfillment of the serpent's promise. Now, if you've done your basic research, here's the mistake and here's the trick. For the average ignorant person or religious person, when they hear the word serpent, they will falsely or wrongly tell you, if you say, "What is a serpent?" they will automatically equate it to a snake. That is incorrect. The serpent it's a Greek word that means crafty, wise, or subtle. Go look it up. That gets synonymous with a snake because a snake or a serpent, or a snake actually crawls and is very crafty and slick. But a serpent is the characteristics that was attributed to the snake. A serpent is not a snake. Do the phonetic lookup of your words. Where this gets confusing is because when the religious person hears the word serpent, their mind has been programmed from day one to go right to a snake. So let's establish that fact and correct it. All right. Now watch. Why is this all important? Excuse me. Carried to its furthest extreme, the black magician's ambition is to wield supreme power over the entire universe to make himself a god. So what is your objective as a black magician? To wield supreme power over the entire universe, right? And to make himself a god. Black magic is rooted where? In the darkest levels of the mind. And this is a large part of its attraction. But it is much more than the product of the love or evil or a liking for mysterious mumbo jumbo. Now, again, if you just got some fascination with this because you're attracted to it because of the external things, and that's it, and you don't really have a good foundation of why, you're going to run into a wall. We're going to talk a little bit about that. It is a titanic attempt to exalt the stature of man, to put man in the place which religious thought reserves for God. In spite of its crudities and squalors, this gives it a certain magnificence, right? The great fascination of magic is the type of thought on which it is based. Excuse me. Magical thinking is not random. It has its own laws and its own logic, but it's poetic rather than rational. It leaps to conclusions. Here's the important thing. It leaps to conclusions which are usually scientifically unwarranted, but which often seem poetically right. Now, what this is talking about, you can't see. The problem is you have this thing that's been big, quote unquote, in circles of consciousness called pseudoism. Well, if you don't practice black magic, and when you're talking about things that are subjective, that's going to appear pseudo to certain individuals, because not everything in black magical theory and practice can be backed up by some encyclopedia or some book. So you got some people that are just, they're in books, and everything's got to be verified by a book or a source. Well, if you're dealing with just on the surface history and science, I get that, and I agree. And I would apply the system of pseudoism to history and science. But when you're dealing with things outside of the objective realm, mainly outside of person, place, or thing, not everything's going to be backed up by that. And that's why when you are on this path, you have to be very careful when dealing with people and talking with people, especially about your personal experiences, because personal experiences are subjective. So it becomes pseudo to some individuals when you're trying to convince somebody of a personal experience that they did not have. So you have to be very conscious of that when you are building on certain things like that, and make sure you're explaining that, because you got to make it clear, because the people that can connect and relate to you are people that have the same or similar like experiences. But understand this, especially greater black magic workers, and that's why I titled this video "The Universe of the Black Magician." It's a whole different mindset. Remember, some of these experiences that you are going to have, and dealing with the subjective, again, is not always going to be explained by some book, some fact in a book somewhere, or verified by some source that people, credit as being valid. Because even those valid sources at one point weren't valid. So who validated them? So you have to get out of the mindset that what you do needs to be validated by another. If you're in that mindset, you're still religious. See, the black magician doesn't care about any of that. The only thing that they care about is that they get results. And that's why you always hear me say, if you're not sure what to do, you say, should I or should I not do this? I say, do what gets you results. It's irrelevant if somebody can't explain it or relate to it themselves, because they're probably not able to tap into the experience you had on your subjective, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean you back down from what it is you are doing, because if you do that, then what you're doing is you're basically shortcoming yourself. You're not bringing the full potential. Remember, one of the first things you have to do on this path, one of the steps when tapping into the isolated consciousness, is one, not being worried or caring about what anybody says or thinks, because everybody has their own particular path they're going to take. It's not, everybody's path isn't identical. There will be similarities on that path, but we're all not going to do and use the same methods and travel the same exact way. All right. So it's very important we're clear on that when we deal with the world of a black magician. And the unique thing is, when we all are on this path and we come together collectively, we're able to mesh that. And that's the purpose of why we set up group rituals once a month, so you can experience that and compare it to your personal work. And now you get a thorough understanding of the place a group ritual, be it ceremony of magic or a group ritual, it carries a certain energy, as opposed to when you're doing your own private personal work. In the world of the black magician, he or she knows both are needed to a certain level. Now, the certain level that is needed is up to the black magician. Some might need a little less of one or the other, depending on the type of work that they do. So this is why it's good to experience all aspects of those things to determine, what you do and do not need. Now, I'm totally in opposition to those, you're going to run into some that can't do things by themselves. They constantly got to do things in a group setting, and that's no good. They can't really stand on their own when it comes to ritualistic work. The only way they can function is they have to just, be in a group setting all the time. Well, that's not good. And then it works vice versa. There are some that think that, oh, I don't need anything or anybody. I can do this all by myself. I know everything. I can do this. I can work that. It's not necessary. Well, they've convinced themselves of that. But if you're on this path and practice Luciferianism, vampirism, or any of those systems, you need energy also in group settings to feed and absorb off of certain energies. Now, yes, you can go out into individual spots, as we've talked about in the past, but that is not the same type of energy you can absorb just randomly in public from somebody you zone in on or in a specific situation, as opposed to being in a group setting with like minds and like individuals. Now, the only way you can really reciprocate that and understand what that is and how it feels is based on the experience, or we call it the path of indulgence. One must indulge in certain things, you understand, in order for that individual to experience, feel, and understand the fullness of whatever it is they're trying to make a decision on or understand. All right. So it is a type of thinking which has been prevalent all throughout the history of Europe, and not just Europe, really everywhere, behind huge areas of our religion, philosophy, and literature, which is a major guidepost to the regions of spiritual and supernatural, the regions of which science has nothing to say. There is no necessity to accept it, but it rings many a faraway summoning bell in the depths of the mind. Again, confirming science is not going to be able to explain your subjective experiences. It is natural to think of magic as a thing of the past, which must have withered to dust under the hard light of modern science and skepticism. But in fact, this is not the case. Magical thinking is still deeply embedded in the human mentality, right? So we said it starts in the mind. That's what it is, and it's embedded in there now. It's saying it's always been there. Magic has been practiced throughout, even though it says European history here, but it goes even further back, as we know, to Africa, ancient Egypt, down to and including the present day, and it has attracted more interest and support in the last 100 years than any time since the Renaissance. No one is a black magician in his own eyes, and modern occultists, whatever their beliefs and practices, think of themselves as high-minded white magicians, not as sinister brothers of the left-hand path, right? In October 1964, the Los Angeles police arrested 39 gypsies on charges of fortune-telling. The gypsies immediately accused the police of violating their religious freedom. They were not telling fortunes, but giving spiritual readings. Gypsies are born with the power to look into the future. It is part of our religion. Divination is a part of this path. When you are in the occult, you are a black magician, you should be skilled in some level of divination. I can only speak what I'm skilled in. I will read runes. I will use certain decks or tarot cards, mainly the Voodoo tarot deck, the tarot of the Orishi. I will use the tarot of the dead, and I have a neutral tarot, and I kind of adjust that to the energy I get off the client if I'm using the system of divination. And I will read scarabs, right? Some might read the cowrie shells in West African traditions. Some might use, I know some that read crystal balls. Some like to scry and divinate and look in that methodology. I'm just throwing a few examples out there. All right. Divination is a part of this path. And you're going to find in some shape, form, or fashion, most people at some point in their journey tap into some level of divination, because what that basically is that sometimes I won't use anything. It just depends. Sometimes it could just be a simple candle and a glass of water. It just all depends on what's coming through and what's going on. Spiritism plays a role in this, and we've talked a little bit about that over the last several weeks, which has its connection. It just depends on what spiritual systems you're branching off into and what you're studying. But the unique thing about this path is you can incorporate any of them on this path. That's the unique thing. All right. So you're going to see that in any, and I'm sure most of us have already experienced that. All right. Okay, I'm going to skip down. The most notorious and most brilliantly gifted of modern magicians, Aleister Crowley was regarded as a black sorcerer by many other cultists, and his rituals are saturated with sex and blood to an extent, to put it mildly, scarcely fits the normal conception of white magic. But he himself professed nothing but contempt for black magicians, and that is true, and I can attest to that, being initiated into the Order Templi Orientis, third degree. Okay, and a lot of it is based on Eastern mysticism, on a character named Saladin. I ain't going to get into depth with it, but obviously, if you are familiar with Crowley and Thelema and you're familiar with his work, he was heavily influenced by ancient Egyptian mysticism, Arab mysticism, and as I mentioned before, Freemasonry. There's even some Shriner stuff encoded in there. So any of those orders of the mystic shrine that dealt with that Eastern mysticism and Masonry is heavily in the degrees of the Order Templi Orientis. And if anybody has or is or was a member, can definitely relate to what I'm talking about. So this is very important to understand. I find it interesting that Richard Cavendish pointed that out, because Crowley, in essence, really, as he said here, didn't really consider himself, quote unquote, a black magician. But I find it, if anybody's ever attended a Gnostic mass, for an example, and you can openly, you do not have to be a member of the Order Templi Orientis to attend a Gnostic mass, okay? I would recommend any individual, okay, just to experience it, okay? If you, whatever area you're in, they're pretty much everywhere. I would suggest you find your local OTO temple, and they usually once a month offer a Gnostic mass where public and members attend together. Reason why I would suggest you attend one of them as a guest is so you can experience it and pay attention to the symbolisms and a lot of the things. It's basically an Egyptian ritual incorporated with, they call it a mass, incorporated with Catholicism, right? Also with Freemasonry, because there's signs and symbols that the participants do. There is a quote unquote Eucharist celebrated, but more in a ritualistic way. And you will also find towards the end of the Gnostic Mass, there are invocations said to certain deities. Pan is mentioned specifically, invoked. You will also hear the invocation of Baphomet, right? So it's interesting. And again, I'm speaking of my experiences with it. There are black magic elements there. But in my experience, I would consider OTO workers of high magic. It's not quite fluffy, in my opinion. It's not quite dark what we do. But it's like, I would say, a little bit deeper, and I'm just using metaphors, a little bit deeper than what I would call a gray sider. A gray sider to me is somebody that's not fluffy, but somebody that don't want to be completely dark. They talk, black magic shit. They wear the symbols. They say they're a cult, but they ain't really doing nothing black magic. I would say that OTO to me is a step above that, because there's a lot of heavy pagan Wicca kind of embedded in there in a more intense way. You'll see that because there's a lot of, in my experience and the lodge that I belong to, there's a lot of people that practice Wicca. And nature magic does serve a purpose. And they're high on the equinoxes. There's rituals geared to every equinox in the Order Templi Orientis, and that's cool. But I'm saying, if it's not your thing to become a full member and experience it, you can attend a Gnostic mass to understand some of the things I'm saying. You do not have to be a member to attend a Gnostic mass. Again, find your local OTO lodge, whatever city or state you live in, and they offer it once a month. And again, I would, to validate what was just read in this book, I would suggest some of you go and check it out and see what you get out of it from your own personal experience. All right, let me continue on with this short section I got up here, and then I will go back through all the questions and comments in the chat. Just be patient. All right. Okay. So this is talking about Crowley now. Among them, he included Christian scientists and spiritualists, as well as those of his fellow occultists who disapproved of him. Now remember, Crowley was a member of the Order of the Golden Dawn before he branched off and got connected with the whole OTO thing, all right? Very important. In the same way, the writers of the old grimoires or magical textbooks, which instruct the reader in methods of calling up evil spirits, killing people, causing hatred and destruction, or forcing women to submit to him in love, did not think of themselves as black magicians. On the contrary, the grimoires are packed with prayers to God and the angels, fasting and self-mortification and ostentatious piety. The principal process in the grimoire of Honorius, which is usually considered the most diabolical of them all, overflows within passionate and perfectly sincere appeals to God and devout sayings of Mass. Kind of just what I was talking about. You'll see some of it very discreet, not on an intense level in a Gnostic Mass. Now, the private Gnostic Mass is a little bit different. I will explain that another time. It is also involves tearing out the eyes of a black cock and slaughtering a lamb, and its purpose is to summon up the devil. It is not merely that people are naturally disinclined to pin nasty labels on themselves, and that the human mind can always find excellent reasons for evoking the devil or killing an enemy or causing harm and destruction. The magician sets out to conquer the universe. To succeed, he must make himself master of everything in it, evil as well as good, cruelty as well as mercy, pain as well as pleasure. See, this is the part where some people can't really relate to on this path, okay? You must be able, when it says conquer the universe, okay? Remember I said the black magician is always in control of their immediate surroundings and their immediate environment. Okay, you control your own universe. The only way something or somebody can penetrate that is if you allow it. I'm not saying things in the world can't affect you, because some people get that confused. So you're saying natural disasters can't affect us? Are you saying hunger and poverty? Yes, that stuff can affect you if you allow it to control you. If you open yourself up to the point where some people fear, with every little thing that they hear in the news, with everything that's been going on over the years, some people are a victim of their own circumstances, or as I like to say, they're either part of the experiment or they're controlling it. You understand? You have to understand how to put all of that into perspective. This is what this is talking about. If you can't do that, first and foremost, that's what the objective of a black magician is. All right. Deep at the heart of the magical outlook is the pagan, but not ignoble conviction that everything has its place and function in the order of the universe, and that all types of experiences are potentially rewarded. Now, notice how it said here, good and bad, what we term good and bad, I should say, or what we perceive good and bad, or negative and positive, all of those things. Remember, this is why we always refer a lot of people to really study the 7 principles of Tahuti, because it'll help you understand those 7 hermetic principles will really help you understand, the doctrine of vibration, the doctrine of polarity. All is mental, mental is all. The universe is mental, that all things, points of origins are in the mind. Even if it's an external experience that you're experiencing. I don't care if you're having some type of, delusional or holographic experience with a spirit of your bloodline, whatever, even if it's creating an experience outside of yourself, you understand? It has its point of origin in the mind, because you have to still tap into a certain intense thought in the subconscious to bring that into fruition, to manifest it. So when it says all is mental, mental is all, and being able to tap into the inner depths of your subjective mind is what brings this all into existence, no matter what it is. Because some people get confused and say, well, what if archetype comes to me? This is a great question. I get this all the time. People will work with an archetype and then they have an experience, right? They say, well, let's use Callie for an example. We get this with a lot of women. Callie came to me in my dreams. Callie spoke to me, or I was in meditation and I had a vision of Callie, or I had a vision of Shango or Batala. Okay, you did, but it was subjective. Okay, you did. Even though it was creating the illusion that you were in meditation, you conjured up the image as it's been embedded in your subconscious, whether you're conscious of it or not. Yes, you can manifest that, but it still has its point of origin in here. Okay, So people get so caught up in the literalness of it all. They're more focused on trying to validate. They spend their life's journey trying to validate if these archetypes and deities, should I accept them more external than internal? And I can tell you right now, that's a waste of time. It all starts within. It's all a journey that starts within and works its way out. It's not reverse. Religion and dogma and softer philosophies and spiritual systems always teach you the concept to look outside of yourself to the answer for things. Look outside of yourself for the creator. Worship, right? We don't worship anything on this path. I want to make that clear. We do not worship and gravel and pray and belittle ourselves to things that we know we created, that we have the power, that we gave life to. Let me give you an example, right? Religion was the greatest black magic spell ever forced upon the masses ever in this lifetime. Because the very fact that this myth and illusion still has people in an uproar in 2018 where we're still debating, fussing, and fighting over it, except the black adept who really don't give a fuck about it, don't care to get in some useless debate and conversation about it. That was the very spell of sorcery and wizardry itself, by convincing the masses and separating the masses to convince people, you understand, is this true or not? So people spend their whole lives debating, arguing, fussing, and fighting over something that can't be proven or confirmed. So while people are doing that, worshiping and looking for things outside of themselves, the black adept / magician, he or she is looking within themselves for the solutions to the problems in their life. They're tapping into the recesses of their subconscious mind to work greater or lesser black magic to create results that they need to get things done. Be it relationship problems, be it money problems, career, any type of blockages. There is a path, a system, when you are skilled enough that you can utilize to show that's exactly what ancient Egypt was really all about. Everybody's so caught up on the Egypt thing, Egypt this, Egypt that, but they don't talk about, and I mention this all the time, they don't talk about the black magic or the Heka aspect of ancient Egypt. That's where the true power of ancient Egypt lies. We on this path, that's what we deal with. When we're working with ancient Egypt, we're working with Heka. That's the powerful system that all the masters utilize. It's deeper than just quoting some passages from the pyramid text and the coffin text and studying the history of Egypt. That's great. That serves a very, a minute purpose. Because in 2018, in this day and time, that stuff is only going to take you so far. It's great to know all that history, but if I can't apply any of it, then what's the point? So we're living in a day and time where we need solutions. We need answers. So the illusion is, a lot of us think we're going to join these Save the World organizations, or we all need to come together, or melanated people need to unite and get together. And I've mentioned this before, and it's not being negative, if that's the word you want to use. It's just being practical. It's never going to happen. You must start with yourself first and foremost. Rule of thumb: you can't help anybody if you are not right. You can't help nobody if you can't help yourself. How are you going to try to extend yourself to the rest of the world when your shit is jacked up? Okay, that's step one. So step one, before you can help others, you must be in order yourself. Okay, I'm not saying there's going to be a time where everything is perfect and you don't have no problems. That's not what I'm talking about. But you must be working in conjunction and harmony with this energy before you can reach out and help others, right? All right, so then it goes on to say, deep at the heart of the magical outlook, is the pagan. Not ignoble conviction, but everything has its place and function in the order of the universe, and all the types of experiences are potentially rewarding. That's where we left off. The complete man, which is the magician, and we should say woman too, attempts to be is the man who has experienced and mastered all things. This conviction is closely related to the magical theory of the relationship between God, man, and the universe, right? That all goes together, all right? This second section here, which I'm not going to get into the whole thing of it, I'm going to get into just the beginning aspect, which is a continuation of the magician's universe. right? This is foundation, and this is key, because if you want it, you always get, people always ask this question, where do I begin? How do I proceed? How should I look at this? More so for somebody, let's say, coming fresh into this path. How should you approach it? How should you look at it? You understand? Well, this is the mindset, first and foremost, that you should be approaching it with, right? One of the hardest things to do is leave everything at the door, right? So let me tap into, this was one of the, and this is now going to connect to why we did the ritual we did this Friday night for Papa Legba. We do have a short clip of it. I got to get it from Sonya. She needs to send it to me. I know we filmed a short clip of it. That purpose is what I'm getting ready to say now. When people get to this threshold, it's hard for them to leave previous things they came from behind. And sometimes unconsciously, they're not aware it's weighing them down. So the hardest thing to do is come on this path and not be influenced about your preconceived. No, I don't care what it is you studied prior to this, because whatever it is you studied prior to this, some of it will be beneficial and assist you. Trust me, it will. You're going to find out, though, majority of it is not going to be beneficial and it's not going to assist you. And you'll find out sometimes you're tapping into it when you don't need to, and it could be holding you back. So one of the things one must do when first coming on this path is be willing, when we use the term to reprogram the subconscious mind, you must be willing to relearn everything it is you thought was correct. And that's a hard thing to do, because sometimes when you've been doing something for so long, that creates the illusion, because I've been doing it so long, it's got to be correct. And it's usually not. Some people stay in certain systems because they become complacent or comfortable, or as we say, they get in their comfort zone and they don't want to leave it. They want to stay there because they've been doing it so long. So they think that because I've been doing this so long, this is right. You must be willing to put all that aside. Now, the ritual for Papa Legba that we did Friday, we, in a lot of the chants and invocations, we said with, reverence and zest, I'll go, Papa Legba, open the gates, open the gates, Papa Legba. We were asking Papa Legba to open the gates so we can receive what it is we really need to receive. So we could be made aware in our psyche what it is that we're not aware of that is blocking us. Because remember, the gatekeeper, right? And I have the symbol right here. Hold on. I don't have it on, but let me show you. Okay, as you see the sigil, Papa Legba, right? And you also see it sometimes on a key, right? You'll see his sigil, right? And on a key. This is one that I frequently wear. Now, the gatekeeper and what this whole ritual and what Papa Legba represents in the psyche of the magician, we use some invocations in the ancient African language where it referred to, and some have probably seen this, where it refers to Papa Legba as the great magician, right? It refers to him as the viral, and it invokes, in terms in the language, the man with the viral penis. Because if you go back to Benin in Africa, you will see, and Brother Adler, AP, I don't know if he's in here right now, he had sent me a video which confirmed that invocation, that we had done. And I saw it in there and I was like, wow, this is not a coincidence. You'll see the statue in Africa of Papa Legba as an African man sitting with horns on his head and an erect penis. And there is an invocation specifically for that because of what the phallus represents in this particular ritual. So we use those invocations to activate that energy, the sigil, right? And we've talked about that, the babies in this ritual, which was drawn in front of the altar. We know that's the porthole or the gateway that opens or it creates that quote unquote pathway or conductor to bring that energy of Papa Legba in. For what? To create that awareness. And everyone, I'm sure, and we talked about it briefly after the ritual as we sat in a circle and had a brief discussion before we went to get our grub on. I went around the room and asked everybody if they could briefly share their experiences, their communication. Because remember, Papa Legba is the great communicator. Here's the beauty of this when you're working with magic, because Remember, the energy of Papa Allegro can appear in your psyche as male or female because it's an androgynous energy. It can appear as an adult, a child. The list goes on and on because remember, in Voodoo, that particular energy is known as the great communicator and speaks all the languages of the gods. So you're dealing with a master magician, right? Papa Legba represents what we're trying to become. The facilitator, the great magician. He represents all that virality that black magic actually represents. And as we went around the room and had a very brief discussion, everybody briefly shared their experience. And that's why I said, if you go back and look at the video that I did last week before the ritual, I clearly said everybody will have a collective and an individual experience. That's another reason why each individual, to a certain extent, needs to experience a group ritual, because you don't get that in an individual ritual. In an individual ritual, it's personal. It's just you and the work you're doing, and it's a different energy. It's a different vibration. It's a totally different feeling. When you're doing a collective ritual and you have like minds, like energy, like vibrations and frequencies, it's a whole different feeling. And again, the black magician will find out, in essence, both are needed to a certain extent. Now, that quote unquote percentage of what one needs as opposed to the other, that's going to vary according to the magician. It's that simple. You understand? Some will need a little less, some will need a little more. Some will just need very minute aspects of it, but you are the facilitator of that. So that's the purpose. And that's why you always hear me say, we don't just do rituals to do them just because they're fun. Everything we do has a purpose and has a method in order to accomplish a certain result. So this is why we put that out there and we offer that once a month for that purpose. All right. All right. Let me finish this last section and then I'll go through some of your questions. I'm going to read this is a quote from an old book. This is G.K. Chesterton, The Dagger with Wings. Listen to this quote. This is also in chapter 1 of the Dark Arts book, The Magician's Universe. The soul goes round upon a wheel of stars and all things return. Good and evil go round in a wheel. That is one thing and not many. Do you not realize in your heart, do you not believe behind all your beliefs that there is but one reality and we are its shadows? And that all things are but aspects of one thing. And that what Tahuti said in the Emerald Tablets? A center where men melt into man and man into God. It's all connected. It's just we don't see it. It's not that it hasn't always been there. Human beings and mortals are the ones over thousands, well, millions of years that have created this separation by starting all these man-made religions. And most of them, when they broke off, they externalized these spiritual systems. I wasn't dealing with a lot of mental alchemy, particularly. All right. We have to be able to see through all of that nonsense because the black magician knows all energy is connected. And when it was mentioning there, we don't separate. Remember earlier it talked about good and bad, right and wrong, positive and negative. A real black magician doesn't look at anything in that regards. It all serves a purpose. I've said this many times. The challenge and the work that has to be done is knowing how to facilitate that energy. There is a time to do destructive magic. It is part of this path. There is times to open a can of whoop ass on somebody, but not out of spite, not just for personal greed. When you are in danger and you are threatened and you are in the right, you have every right to retaliate and attack back and do a destructive magical working, a black magical destructive working. It's funny because I was going through some of that today, some of the principles of that today. But it is part of this path. But again, remember I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the black magician's goal is to administer he or she's complete power over the universe, but not get controlled or consumed by that power. Because as I said, power can be one of the most greatest forces in the universe. It could also be one of the most destructive. And who controls that? You do. So it's how you facilitate and use that power. Let me give you an example. I've always said Haiti could be one of the most strongest countries in the world because they have that natural spiritual gift and power to work black magic, which some might call voodoo and witchcraft and sorcery, which it is, but not in a spooked out method. But as opposed to using it collectively in a more beneficial way, and I'm not saying that all don't, but as a whole, if you look at the history of Haiti's presidencies and things, that have happened over the last 40 to 50 years, and there was a lot of voodoo and the occult at the root of it, they utilize that power more to abuse and control rather than use it as a worldwide force where they could have been, as small as a country is, could have been one of the most powerful countries in the world. But now that system of black magic is used to conquer and divide. That's an example of power being abused. And one thing that I found very, very, very unique when it happened at the time, or well, I shouldn't say unique. One thing I found hilarious because it was unique that people would even point that out. If those that remember whatever year that was, 2000 and I can't remember. I think it was 2008, 2009 when Haiti had the big earthquake. The religious fools came out and were saying stupid ass shit like, oh, the earthquake hit Haiti because they practiced voodoo. God was mad with them. That's got to be the most ignorant shit that I ever heard. Or hurricanes travel the same paths that the slave ships do. Look, leave that spookiness alone. Because let me tell you something. When them hurricanes reach landmass, they have destroyed, whether it was last year in Texas, here in Florida and other states, they destroyed many melanated people's property and destroyed many lives of melanated people. Don't give me that bullshit. It's just a black and white thing. Hurricanes have been taking those paths prior to before we were even having this discussion about hurricanes. It's because where we're geographically located. Okay, it's just a scientific nature fact. They were always taking that path. I know we like to say that because we can kind of connect it and it sounds good, but this is the stupid shit people were saying when that hurricane hit. You understand? But it all goes to how you utilize that power. That has nothing to do with that. All right. So man is made in the image of God, and it has often been sardonically observed that God is made in the image of man. Both statements are accepted as true in magic. Man can make himself God because he has the divine spark within him. He is a miniature image of God, and God is a man writ large, right? How do you know that? Well, in their very Bible, in the second chapter of Genesis, the 7th verse, read it. It says, God breathed into man the breath of life, breathed into man's nostrils the breath of life, and man became what? A living soul. So the very essence, this is how we as an adept approach, really, their stories of Jesus. Jesus was really a black magician when you really look at it, because he was trying to dispel the myths that the Pharisees were teaching. We say, when you see me, you see God. It was blasphemy. You crazy. He was talking about this. And then he would come at him with shit like, is it not written in your law, the ye gods? And he was referring to Psalms 82:6, right? When King David said it to his congregation. So he was quoting their law. But he came, just like it's our job in this day and time to dispel the myth. The great magician, Yahshua, came to show that those just like today, the religious fools of this day and time do things for show, right? They put on shows. They say the right things. They got the look down pat, but they're hypocrites. You understand? And we're here to dispel and smash all that shit, right? Goes on to say he is a miniature image of God. Excuse me. Damn allergies. Aleister Crowley defined God as the ideal identity of man's inmost nature. Didn't say his outmost nature. Didn't say his external nature. Didn't say his spookiness that the man searched for God somewhere in the sky. He said his inmost nature. How you behave, your personality, your character, the things you do are all characteristics of this God that you're searching for. No matter how fucked up they are, no matter how positive they are. You have to study that to understand the nature of what you're labeling as, quote unquote, this God or creator, right? Something ourselves that makes for righteousness. And the great work is the raising of the whole man in perfect balance to the power of infinity, at which point he becomes God, right? Another notorious sorcerer, the great Renaissance magician Cornelius Agrippa, writing about 1510, asked, how is it possible for men to wield magical powers? And answered, no one has such powers but he who has cohabited with the elements, vanquished nature, mounted higher than the heavens, elevated himself above the angels to the archetype itself, with whom he then becomes co-operator and can do all things. What do we say on this path? We're not trying to worship the archetype or the deities. We're not trying to grovel and pray to them. We are trying to embody and become what they are. Now, they use the term here, the co-operator. What that's simply saying is you becoming one with the archetype as opposed to worshiping it. Let me say it again. You becoming one with the archetype of deity. For an example, if you're confused, how does a black magician approach doing or working with an Egyptian deity, right? We get this all the time. Let's use it. Let's use this as an example. All right. So let's say we want to do some healing work. We want to cure some ailments we might be dealing with, health issues, muscle aches, pains, whatever it might be. Let's just say healing, right? What deity in ancient Egypt could we connect with that emits the attributes from a conscious and spiritual perspective of healing? So let's say Khonsu, right? Now, if you read in ancient Egyptian history, you'll see most homes kept an image of Khonsu because he represented that healing force or energy. So a black magician will go, okay, Khonsu, one of his key aspects that he deals with is healing. The black magician would create a ritual that are affiliated with the colors that Khonsu represent, his imagery, the crook, the frail, all those things that are affiliated with Khonsu. And for an example, could take the, consecrate a crook and frail of Khonsu and pass it over parts of their body that might need some healing energies, along with doing a visualization. You understand? So instead of us worshiping the deity, that means becoming the co-operator with the deity. And I've mentioned before, real chaos magic works with that aspect. When you deal with real chaos magic, you're really taught to really tap into what the archetype represents, to the very point where you yourself might dress up and wear and carry the implements that archetype represents, just so you can really unlock that part of your psyche and tap into the power of that particular archetype. I hope everybody's clear on that. You can do that with any archetype. If it's road clearing work, obstacles, Papa Legba, La Santissima Muerte, the Holy Death, Anpu/Anubis, right? These are all road clearing, path clearing deities. So how do we operate and work with them? Again, get familiar with colors, symbolisms, what they represent, the consciousness that they're tied into. That's how you embody and become what the deity represents and become, as it says here, a co-operator. You merge or become one with the deity. We'll make that clear. That's the difference between worshiping something, because you still see people on this path, especially a lot of these people in these quote unquote Egyptian Kemetic circles, like they make prayers to Egyptian deities. I don't understand that. They use terms as I've heard this, and I've mentioned this a bunch of times on the videos. They use terms like the Most High Ra. You're religious. There's no other way of getting around it. And you might say, no, you're not. Yeah, you are. You're very religious. What happens is, remember, the trauma from being embedded in those doctrines doesn't disappear overnight. It stays there. Don't think because you left Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, or Buddhism, or whatever it might have been, it could have been a year ago, 2 weeks ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you think it's completely gone. It's not. You will find at some points it bubbles to the surface. It comes to the surface of your mind, and you're not even conscious of it sometimes. You may not be able to see it, but it comes sometimes, it manifests in your words and actions. That's why I said when somebody claims to be a god or claims to be on an occult path, they would never use the term Most High God. That shows me where your mindset still is. Now because I'm telling you, we've caught people out. I've caught plenty of people out here on this, and they'll say, no, well, what I meant was, no, you can't go back and say what you meant after the fact. What I meant was my higher self. That's not what the fuck you meant. That's not what it sounded like. You said the Most High Ra, which means subconsciously you're looking at Ra as some father figure deity in the sky, the way a Christian looks at God, Yahweh, Jehovah, the way a Muslim looks at Allah, Ta'ala, right? Allah Ta'ala, the Most High, right? You just didn't catch it. And that's one of the hardest things to do. One of the gifts of Set, or the black magician, is the isolated consciousness. Being able to isolate yourself from all of that dogma that makes you dense, right? What's one of the keys in spiritual alchemy, right? In order to obtain those heights, like to achieve what Tahuti said in the Emerald Tablets, the one thing, and it mentioned it here, the one thing, all things are connected. How does one achieve that? By making themselves less dense. Those things that make them dense are the aspects of the ego. And what I plan on running into after this series, Sufism, which we're going to do some videos on Sufism, because Sufism deals with all aspects of the ego, the good and the bad. So I want to tap into some of that. That's going to be in a couple of weeks. But the things that make you dense is what weighs you down from, being able to progress on this path and achieve and get the results that you desire. What are those things? Envy, hatred, uncontrollable lust. I'm not talking about indulgence lust, because that's a whole nother story. Animosity, all these emotions you have no control over weigh you down. And one of the most important things, incorrect information, or what we like to call ignorance. That makes you more dense than can even be explained or put in words. So one of the magician's goal is to make themselves dense and rid themselves of those things. So when they're vibrating at a certain frequency, especially when they're tapping in and doing their work, they're able to make a connection a lot smoother. Okay? This is important to understand, because if you can't grasp this aspect, it's going to be a struggle for you. It's going to be complicated. All right? All right. It is not merely that people are naturally disinclined to pin nasty labels on themselves, and that the human mind can always find excellent reasons. We did that part. We're going to skip that. All right. The ideal identity or archetype is the fundamental unity. Back on what we were talking about, being a cooperator. Oh, sorry, the spot skipped on me. The ideal identity or archetype is the fundamental unity which magicians see behind the all apparently diverse and disorderly phenomena of the universe. Now you're looking through the eyes of the archetype, right? Or as they say in the Egyptian mysteries, you're looking through the eyes of God, right? Or they say putting on, we call it on this path, the deific mask. What does it mean to work with the deific mask? It means you put the deific mask on and you look through the eyes of the deity. That's how you become the cooperator. So now you embody what the deity represents. You understand it. It's now embedded in your conscious. You understand it because you have become one, or you have meshed, quote unquote, with it. So you're not looking at it from an external perspective no more. You know what it represents because you have now raised yourself up to the level that you put on the deific mask. You've looked through the eyes of the archetype. So instead of worshiping Khonsu, you are now working as the cooperator and or have become like a Khonsu, right? Remember, anytime you see, and I mentioned this before, anytime you see in ancient Egypt, when one of the pharaohs took on the name, in their name, they had the name of an archetype or deity. If Set was in the name, or Seti, right? If Heru was in the name, or Usir, or Ger, any of the pharaohs had, Pharaoh Ger Ra, Sobek Ra. Anytime they took a name, they earned that because they raised themselves up to that particular title because they mastered the aspects of what that deity represented. So they became like a Set. They became like an Osiris or Usir. That's what a pharaoh is. They became a personification of God in the flesh because they obtained a certain level of knowledge, wisdom, and they became like that deity. And then you had triads and cults that, set up their whole system of operation based on the mysteries of the deity that they were enshrined or engulfed in. So this is why when we say many were raised up to the level of these deities. That's what your objective is on this path, is to become what really is a pharaoh. We use that term all the time. We know it's a Greek term, but we use that term really when you're saying you're to become like Pharaoh is to say, I am now a representation of God in the living flesh. This is what it means. This is how we got to look at this stuff. So the difference is somebody that practices, if you want to use the word Kemetic, ancient Egyptian Hecans, or really studies what ancient Egypt embodied, it's using the principles and practices to become like God. Not worship God, but to become like God, right? So it says, the world we live in may seem to be a rag bag of odd, fortuitously assembled bits and pieces, but magicians believe that it is really a whole, like a design or a machine, and that all its parts are necessarily connected together in a certain way. Human beings are wholes of this kind. A man is made of many different things: his body, appearance, his mental and spiritual characteristics, his moods, his humor, his different ways of expressing himself at different times and in different circumstances. This is going to be the last page. But these are all linked together into one organism with one underlying personality. In magic, the universe is a human organism on a colossal scale, just as the facets of man's character and behavior are aspects of a single personality. So all the phenomena of the universe are aspects of some one thing which underlies and connects them. This one thing is a being, a force, a substance, a principle, or something which is not possible to describe in words at all. It is the one, or God. The universe and everything in it constitutes God. The universe is a gigantic human organism, and man is a tiny image of it, a toy replica of God. Because he is a miniature of the universe, by a process of spiritual expression, a man can mystically extend his own being to cover the entire world and subject it to his will. Greater black magic, subjective realm. You have the ability to control that and subject it to your will. What is a GBM or a greater black magic working? When one is able to go into the inner depths of their subjective universe or subjective mind and enforce their will to shape the outcome of a situation beneficial for their favor. It's giving you the core of what black magic is. I think this is probably one of the most simplest ways to explain it to something or somebody, okay? It is because all things are aspects of one thing that all things are grist to the magician's mill. The complete man who has experienced and mastered all things has vanquished nature and mounted higher than the heavens. He has reached the center where man becomes God. The achievement of this is the great work, the supreme magical operation which may take a lifetime or many lifetimes to complete. So don't think you're going to get this in 5 days, 10 days, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It's a continuous work in progress. Okay? Hold on 1 second. Can I close the door? Silence. Okay. All right. In this unified magical universe, mysterious forces are at work, moving beneath the external fabric of things, like the invisible currents of the sea. This is the last section here. Their effects are all around us, but most of us do not recognize their true nature. The universe is in man on a huge scale, and the impulses which move man, love, hate, lust, pity, the urge to survive, the urge to dominate, are found on a much greater scale in the universe. For instance, all things contain a greater or lesser amount of life force, an immensely powerful drive which impels life to continue. It shows itself in the instinct of self-preservation, in the urge to survive, the struggle of everything in nature to cling to life, even in cruel and hopeless conditions, and the universal urge to procreate, to ensure life's continuation by producing one's own kind. And then the last section, last paragraph. Magicians also see a force of violent, destructive energy in the universe. Okay, this is where people struggle right here. Which is a greater counterpart of man's destructive impulses and lies behind every form of savagery, bloodshed, warfare, and havoc. These forces are named for gods and planets. The life force is called the force of the sun because the sun's light and heat are necessary for the existence of all life on Earth. The violent destructive force is named for Mars, the Roman god of war. The great moving forces of the universe are described and classified in various ways. Magicians who follow the theory of the mysterious bodies of doctrines called, in the Kabbalah, list 10 of them. Until fairly recent times, astrologers believed in 7 major forces which they connected with the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets. They now have 9 or 10, adding Uranus and Neptune and sometimes Pluto. Numerologists list 9 forces which they connect with the numbers 1 to 9. The magician masters these forces by experiencing them, by absorbing them into his or her own being, and subjecting them to his or her will. He can do this because the forces are inside him as well as outside him. Now you're getting Baphomet. As above, so below. As within, so without. You're getting totality, equilibrium, right? You're getting coaguli, right? Coagulation, which is inscribed on the arm. Transition from one state to a higher state, right? You're getting the 4 elements. This is, in that symbol alone, you have everything was just embodied in what that paragraph just described. It was explaining what Baphomet really represents on this path, if you really were paying attention. And this is why it is such a widely used occult symbol. I won't say it's used right all the time, but everything that was just explained and represented there, that's what a magician should reflect on when they're utilizing the Baphomet energy, right? Not just because it's a popular occult symbol and I want to wear it because everybody else wears it. I like to do shit like that when I run into people and talk with them, especially when I see people wearing symbols, right? Because a symbol should hold a significance to you. You shouldn't just wear it because you like the way it looks. You should be able to understand its meaning. You'd be able to explain it and why you're wearing it. Unfortunately, with Baphomet, because you see that so much in occult circles, because it's such a widely used occult symbol, you get some crazy ass explanations of why people wear it. But that's a story in itself. All right. So anyway, I think I went over enough of stuff in there. I'm going to stop there. And we'll go through the chat. We'll discuss some of your questions, your comments. And again, the name of the book is The Dark Arts. Richard Cavendish is the author. You can get the book. It's available Amazon. They have it. If you got Scribe, you can get it on Scribe. I would suggest it's a book I recommend because it's really, I look at it as a universal approach to black magic. And what I mean by that is it doesn't, as I said in the very beginning of the video, it don't matter what spiritual system in black magic you're using. The principles discussed in this book can be applied to any of those systems. I don't care what it is. It could be Luciferianism. It could be working vampirism, the Goetia work, working with demons, demonic integration, any of that stuff. I don't care what it is. Necronomicon, Babylonian magic, if that's your thing. Working with all that, any of those things you utilize, this methodology, and I say methodology because it's a method or a way of looking at black magic in the universe of the black magician. How are we to do that? How are we to approach it? So I think the book is good because it gives you a centralized focus. Okay, this is where my mind needs to be as I embark upon this path and start doing work. And so ask yourself, gauge yourself, measure yourself. I'm not saying up to anything or anybody else. Ask yourself, am I at least along the lines of this criteria? You understand? Am I at least moving in the right direction where my mindset is in that state of mind or way of thinking, and I'm approaching it like that? Have I shed myself of all the religious beliefs and dogmas? Have I shed from myself when I go into my workings in depth? Do I leave my personal, faith, my personal spiritual systems, my personal ideologies? Do I leave that? Do I check that and leave it at the front door? I'm not sure why this chat keeps disappearing. Hold on. All right. I got it back. So it's a good book to gauge all of those things. All right. And if you can check that list off and check a lot of yeses to those questions, then okay, you're proceeding down the path. But the black magician must look at his or her universe. And notice I said his or her universe in that like mind. Is it going to be, again, as I say, is everybody going to look at it exactly, identically the same? Absolutely not. But we should have that foundation. Everything's always going to have that central foundation, but it's not going to be identical. All right. So having said that, again, I'd recommend another good book I would recommend people to get. All right. So Black, if I didn't greet you real quick, Black Quartz, Peace, Gypsy Goddess, Brother Duma, Sister Myra, I know I'm going to read her screen name. Sister Myra was at the ritual Saturday. It's good to see her there. Alchemista, what's up? I know you must have been busy. Got to give you a call. I'm Shango, Gypsy Goddess, Mujahid 72. All right, you guys get the point. Peace. All right. So let's go through some of the questions in the comments now. All right. So the first one we got, Sister Maeve. Thanks again. Friday night was such an awesome experience for me. I can't wait for the next event. And yes, as I just mentioned before seeing her comment, yes, she was there this past Friday night. It was good for her because some of the work we did is naturally connected in her bloodline, and it was good for her to experience that. It was all I know is it wore me the fuck out. And Brother Ravana Newman was down here, and I know I was driving home with him, and I couldn't barely keep I was worn out because what happened was after that, being on such a, with all the energy and the intensity, and then when the spirits leave, it's like a withdrawal. You feel it, and it takes about 24 hours to really start feeling normal again. Then eating right after, because you get super hungry. Then eating right after that, man, when I say literally, I could have slept in the parking lot. So there is an aspect in that itself deals with vampirism, replenishing, giving of energies, and replenishing the energy. So after you do works like that, you do have to charge yourself up. Now, I have mentioned in the past, and I've talked about in the past, when you're doing spiritual work, I like to incorporate a lot of spiritual baths when I do personal work and group work. I'll take a spiritual bath before working like that. I will do one after. It's always good to, and I like to create my own. So do things that are conducive to create baths that are conducive to the type of work that you're doing. That's very important. That's critical. All right. Excuse me. But yeah, I know Sister Maya was there. And again, next event, which I had announced in the beginning of the video, if you weren't here, is going to be September 28th, I believe. That's the last Friday of the month. And we will be invoking the powers of darkness and the living Ba of the Black Adept. This is going to be a little bit more intense. This is going to deal with some of this dark, and that's why I kind of went over this material. So a lot of the material I want to go over this month is kind of geared towards that's going to be leading up to that ritual. It's got aspects of necromancy, working with the dead. It's got, invoking what we call the Akaru, or the spirits of the dead, or activating, quote unquote, what we call the four corners. And it's got some demonic integration work in there. So this is some of the intenser work that we do on this path, and the imagery associated with it. It's going to be off the chain. So this is going to be really one of them type of rituals. Even though we'll be in a group setting, everybody will be locked in their own little personal zone. So that will be the next working that we will do collectively as a group for those that would like to attend. And that's going to be on the 28th. All right. AB Mayembe, like I say, brother AB, all right, brother, I assume brother, I could be wrong. Whenever you're able to come, anybody's welcome to come. All right, what else we got? Sister Trina Hurt, peace. Trina was there this past Friday, as I mentioned earlier. Her and her husband, really nice people. Husband's mad cool. They came, and they jumped right in, you know, and that's how you got to come. You know, you just come with an open mind. I mean, yeah, they had some experience. It's not like they complete, you know, they're not complete newbies to the path. They got some experience, but, you know, came right in, fit right in. If you come in with that type of mindset, see, the ones that don't last, we get them. They come sometimes, you know, the spookies. I call them the spookies, space cadets. You know, they come real nervous. You know, let me share this because I think I might have mentioned this in the past. I'll never forget this shit though. It was the eternal light and darkness ritual. And there's all types of shit in this ritual. It's a long ritual. It involves, you know, going through some trials and tribulations, if that's the best way you want to describe it. So the facility we were using at the time, I knew the sister and I had passed her the flyer. She would put the flyer out there. Well, right before we would, you know, as we got into the place and we were working on a ritual, somebody must have told her about it. And she showed up, and I don't even know this sister. I ain't never met her before. And, you know, she was more on, you know, she was Curious George. So she, you know, I had heard about the ritual. I heard you guys are doing a drumming ritual. So I said, well, it's not really just a drumming ritual. I don't know who told you that. But it's a little more to that. And because of the time, and we were getting ready to do it, I said, really, honestly, I don't really have the time at this moment to really spend time with you and explain all this. So my suggestion to her was, I don't really think you should participate because, one, you're not really sure of what it is. Two, again, it's going to take more than just one sit down explaining to you what we get ready to do. And three, I don't really think it'd be productive for you. She didn't want to hear none of that shit. So me, I'm the type of person, okay, if, you know, you want the rope, I'm going to give it to you. If you want to hang yourself, I keep feeding it to you. I said, all right. So I remember she gets in the back. I said, we have people in, we call the ante room or the chamber room where people get prepared for certain rituals. So I said, all right, well, you know, go ahead, go on the back. Everybody that's going to participate in the ritual is in the back. She goes in the back. And I remember, and I think Jack is in here. He can attest to this. It was me, Jack, and Brother Mike. And Ravana might have been at that ritual. Yeah, he was. We all went to the back, and, you know, we go to the back before certain rituals, and this type of ritual was one of them, where we ask you for the last time, are you willing to participate in this working ritual of your own free will and accord? If not, you know, you have the ability, you can go ahead and leave right now. And with the understanding, do not ask questions. Like whatever we do not ask questions. You can't ask questions because that destroys the ritual. That's why we ask, are you willing to go through and participate? And this was that type of ritual. It wasn't like what we did this past Friday. It was a little different. So, I mean, she now looked like she's seeing a ghost, but because, you know, the old saying, curiosity kills the cat, she still was letting the lower side of her nature dominate her. She was more the curious seeker. And when I was saying this, I was looking right at her and I was trying to let her know, like, yo, look, this is your last time. If you want to get the fuck up on out of here, this is your time that you can go. She wanted to stick it out. Well, anyway, long story short, speed it up, not to stay on it too long. She went through the ritual. Well, when we first began and what we did and she got in there, you could tell she was kind of regretting it. But then her ego kicked in. As bad as she wanted to leave, because one person we almost had to get out of that ritual because they were trying to peek through something that we had on them or whatever. You could tell she was kind of nervous and shaking like a leaf, but her ego kept her there. When I tell you when that shit was over, when I tell you to this day, when that was over and everything was finished, the moment she had a chance to get the hell out of there, she got the fuck out of there. I ain't never seen her to this day. Never heard a peep out of her. Sister Sophia, that has the spot up there. Never seen her again since that day. I bring that up to say, this is not something you do, just to be doing it. The reason why I went over that information, you got to have that mindset, that foundation. Because I'm bringing that up because, see, that's a person, and I can tell you what her problem was just by looking at her and talking to her for 5 minutes. She was on all this Kemetic yoga, you know, Egyptian peace and love shit. And I briefly had tried to explain. I said to her, do you know what it is we do? did what you explained. Oh, well, you guys deal with like Egypt and Africa. No, it's a little bit deeper than that. It's not just, we just deal with Egypt and Africa. But she was on that peace and love, comedic yoga type of vibe shit. Again, I ain't knocking. If that's what you do, that's what you do. But that's not what we do. So I said, are you in any shape, form familiar with, sorcery, witchcraft, black magic, anything to that nature? That's when her eyes did like this. But because she couldn't sometimes people don't understand. It's okay to briefly surrender and submit and give in and don't let your ego get the best of you. You can surrender your divinity and get it back. See, if she would have just said, you know what, all right, let me find out more and maybe a next time. Because remember, we're not interested in quantity. I always say this. I don't care if there's 25, 30 people at the ritual or 5 or 10. If the 5 or 10 are going to be more productive of the same like mind, vibration, and frequency, I'd rather work with the 5 and 10 individuals than work with 29 people with 15, 16, or 17 of them are knuckleheads. Because all that does is bring stagnated energy, which leads me to why we have it set up now where you have to request an invite. Because we briefly want to talk to you to prevent shit like that from happening. That's why we do it. We don't want the curious Georges to come. We don't want the curiosity to kill the cat. And sometimes it could be detrimental because if you're not prepared for it, it can do you more harm than it could damage. That's just a reality. And I'm basing it all on the information I went over. So we like to talk to you. Are you in that frame of mind, at least to some extent? If you are, you will be fine. I always say this, if your intent is sincere and it's genuine and you're really here to grow and evolve and transform and get that power, that knowledge, and that wisdom, you will be fine. But if you're here and you want to be an ego magician, you just want to wear the Baphomet symbol and, you want to talk occultist and sound occultist like the Hoteppers do and the Alafia, crew does, and the Ashe posse, as I like to call them, Ashe, Alafia, Hotep, they got the look on the outside, but they fucked up on the inside. That's not what we do. We got it right on the inside and it reflects in our actions on the outside. That's the difference with this path as opposed to other paths. That's what I mean. You can't fake the funk because it's something that starts within. So if you jack the fuck up on the inside, a real adept or black magician is going to be able to see right through that. Because I know I can, and I know others that are on the path can. But the question is, sometimes you can't, and sometimes it takes somebody else to point it out. All right? But anyway. AP Mayembe, Universal Flag Necklaces Fly. Actually, I mentioned this before. Sister Baffa Marga made this piece. She does pieces. She's made pieces for, I know, a couple people in here. I know she's made, I think Duma got a piece made by her. There's a couple people in here. I'm not sure if she's in here right now, but you can, I think her email is her name, BAFAMARGA999 at gmail.com. And she can create any piece. You can get a piece. She can customize it. That's one of her specialties. That's what she does. I have mentioned that in previous videos. So even if you got a piece you want to jazz up, she can hook it up for you. So I would reach out to her. All right. Emperor Fire on Lucid. I'm on time. Okay, that was earlier. Okay. That was Marve talking to Trina. Trina and Maya, they met each other for the first time on Friday. Then we went out to Flanagan's afterwards. We had a good time. Oh, no, I slept like, man, let me tell you something, man. When I say I slept, I don't even remember. Put it that way. That's how hard I slept. All right, what else we got? Make sure y'all got some questions on some of the material we talked about. All right. I'm going down. I know I got a ways to go, so maybe I didn't get to them yet. I know you guys are comments. Those are good too, but I want get some build going on here. All right, so let's see. Gypsy Goddess types in. The other day, I was listening to Arabic music, and this girl at the beauty supply goes to me, "Wow, is that a snake?" I said, "That's music, and that's the point." She looked at me like I got two heads low. I've gotten to the point I'm embracing this openly, don't care how people react, whether it's music or attire. She told me you must have dated some Arab to be in that level of ignorance. No, what she doesn't understand is that you have gypsy spirits that you work with. And when somebody doesn't understand pantheons of spirits and when an individual walks with certain spirits, and obviously you listen, I don't know if it's like Arab belly dance music or Arab music in general, that's a way of connecting with the spirits and the energy, in particular, gypsy spirits. So, and obviously that would probably be why you have, take upon that name. But it goes back to one thing I was saying earlier. When you're working this path on whatever level, and if you're using the aspect of working with spirits, and we've been focusing on a lot of that in different systems over the last several weeks, that's how you connect with the spirit. Remember, I was mentioning earlier about the elementals that are connected to the spirit, the aspects, whether it's clothing, whether it's artifacts, whether it's specific music in this case. All of those things enhance the connection, quote unquote, with those spirits. And one, you have to bypass, like I say, we're not worried on this path what anybody thinks. That's irrelevant, because here's the bottom line in life in general. This ain't even just dealing with black magic or this path. There's always going to be people that like you. There's always going to be people that hate you. That's the cycle of life and nature. The black ad that really don't give a fuck, to be honest with you. I don't spend my days and nights worrying who does and who does not. As long as I know what I'm doing is in accord with my nature, I'm straight. I'm not worried about all that. See, that's the external stuff I was talking about earlier that keeps an individual dense, weighed down, disconnected, not vibrating at the right frequencies so they can't tap into the potential of their power. That's exactly the shit that I was talking about. But that's always going to be there. So we don't care about that. All right. All right. What else we got? Okay. Izzy is typed in. Give me a book that would be good for a person new to black magic. Thank you. All right. I'll give you a couple quick ones. Again, I always recommend, it's technically, it is and it isn't, but it gives you a good understanding of your subjective and objective universe. I always recommend people to read the Kabbalion by the Three Initiates, the Seven Principles of Tahuti. Definitely start there, right? After you kind of grasp that material and get that down packed, I would look into some of the works. For an example, a good book that taps into various aspects, Sekhem Apep by Michael W. Ford. Not a very complicated book. It'll deal with some Egyptian Heka. It'll deal with a little bit of vampirism and Luciferian magic. Kind of meshes the different systems together. I would start, those two books are good. Another book I would recommend that deals with a more intense spiritual aspect of it and being in sound mind and sound body would be Dark Light Consciousness, also by Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum. I would start with some of those books to give you the groundwork before you start going in depth into some of the more intense workings, because I think those are, in my experience and opinion, those are books that give you lay a good frame and a good groundwork. All right. So that would be my answer to that question. All right. What else we got? Okay. Good question by Tarek, Ultimate of All Things. How is the Book of the Law linked to this topic? For those that ain't familiar with the Book of the Law, that, I don't want to say scripture, that was the central text or liber or volume in the Order Templi Orientis, the OTO. And all right, so people that may not be familiar with it, and this is one of the things I used to ask just to get some members' perspective on it. For those that don't know, Crowley claims he received the Book of the Law in the Great Pyramid from a being called Aloas, right? And Aloas, as we know on the left-hand path, was actually a manifestation of Set. Now, even though Crowley didn't know it, you could say Satan, the devil, or Set, but it was the deity that we now know in this day and time as Set. Now, here's something that never really sat well with me. There's two things we got to look at here when we talk about the Book of the Law. Now, one of the key phrases in the OTO is "do what thou will" is the whole of the law, right? Meaning enforce your will. Don't mean with reckless abandonment, but that whatever you will to do is the rule or the ruling or is the law, right? But it goes a little bit deeper than that. The book of the law, which when you get initiated, you get your own hard redback text, which I have here. You get this presented to you. You can get it online. There's copies of it, but this is the one they will give out to you when you go through on your Minerval degree, which is your 0 degree, right? And you use it through the various different degrees. This is it right here. All right. This is the one they give you, and it's signed and the date you were initiated, right? The Book of the Law, Liber Al Regis, right? That's it right there. Again, you can find them online. That you get. OTO does have their own Amazon site, actually, if you Google it. It's a very intense book as far as it really deals with. You really understand Crowley's mindset when you read that book. It's very conflicting, very spiritual. You see some reflections of itself. This was his revelation from, quote unquote, this being Aleister. Now, my thing that I always struggle with, and I was trying to get away at the time from any groups or organization, it always seems at the core of these groups that never sat well with me, there's always this special individual that receives a scripture or revelation or that's in tune with some spiritual being that nobody else is. And that's the shit I didn't want to fuck with no more. I'm like, all right, I want to make sure that this ain't that type of shit. It's not really, it appears like that on the surface, but in actuality, it's a little deeper than that. It's not saying that you need to accept Crowley's personal revelation, but how can you apply what he was revealed, recorded down? How does it apply to yourself? So that was the difference. I said, okay, cool. Then I had heard a few years later, which I still hasn't been explained to me this day, and it's not a knock. I saw a video years ago by Bobby Hemmett. And this to this day was still never explained to me. That Aleister was a black man. He was an extraterrestrial. And he was on a ship coming back to the planet Earth to save black people. Sorry, no disrespect to Bobby Hemmett, but that's a bunch of bullshit. And I can't co-sign on that because it was never explained where that concept came from. You could pull the video up. I actually have it saved in my archives. If people don't know which videos, I'd be more than happy to send it to them where and it's an older video. Now, I don't know where that came from because it was never fully explained. How are we connecting that experience that he was talking about with Aleister to the experience that Crowley had? So are you saying that this being Aleister that Crowley's saying he tapped into, and other than the fact that you're saying it's some extraterrestrial, it just was too far-fetched for me, right? And that's just, look, I'm not telling people what to believe. And again, I'm not knocking or disrespecting Bobby Hemmett, but I have to stand on my own. I don't agree with it. I just think it was a bunch of bullshit, and I got to call it for what it is. I don't even really agree with everything in the Book of the Law because some of it comes off as religious to me. To me, it's like sadistic poetry in some aspects. If you've read it, you really see the conflicted mind of what Crowley was dealing with and what he was going through in life, because he went through some really crazy shit. But on the same notion, it was like a revelation given to him to show, again, how this can connect and relate, not just to him, to others. So you see a connection. So the purpose of that Book of the Law, can it help you in reference to Tarek's question? How would the Book of the Law type into this topic? Well, as Richard Cavendish mentioned in this book, The Dark Arts, he refers to Crowley specifically. And he referred to some of his work as very sadistic. And I would say personally, sadistic, but I don't look at it in a negative way. I think what happened I think he sunk probably too far into it. In my opinion, he got engulfed by some of his sadistic nature, because we all have a sadistic nature to an extent. Don't fool yourself. So yes, I think it does connect to this work and this topic, because if you're willing to really go into again, I want to use the word bizarre because to some people that can come off as, not the right word. If you're really willing to go the extra mile, quote unquote, and really understand, how in depth or deep that side of your nature can go, that's what the Book of Law is touching on. Like, for an example, let me show you. The language of it can be a little confusing. You may not understand it. It could sound like a bunch of babble. Let me give you an example, all right? Since you brought it up. Watch this. You also get a scroll of it, wrapped on a scroll and tied, which that's a whole nother thing when you go through. But hold on. All right. All right, and I had this page marked, right, for a reason, to show you this was some of the work I was doing with it a couple months ago. And to show you I have my little notes on it, okay, that I had in here. All right, watch this. This is chapter 2, verse 7. So here's just some of the language and just so you can understand. I am the magician and the exorcist. I am the axle of the wheel and the cube in the circle. Come unto me is a foolish word, for it is I that go. Who worshipped Heru Pa Krat have worshipped me. Ill, for I am the worshiper. Remember, all ye that in existence is pure joy, that all the sorrows are but as shadows. They pass and are done, but there is that which remains. It's talking about the now, how all things are connected, right? O prophet, thou hast ill will to learn this writing. I see thee hate the hand and the pen, but I am stronger. Because of me in thee, which thou knowest not. For why? Because thou was the knower and me, meaning they were both one and the same. Now let there be a veiling of this shrine. Now let the light devour men and eat them up with blindness. For I am perfect, being not, and my number is 9 by the fools, but with the just I am 8, and 1 and 8, etc., etc. It's a very complex language. I'm not talking about the actual language itself. It's classic English. I'm saying the nature of the language and when you really study the Book of Law, you definitely understand he definitely tapped in to demons, quote unquote, spirits. But I think he gave into the sadistic side of his nature, whereas, as we said earlier, where the power can consume, most people in most circles, the average person that's not familiar with the cult is going to look at Crowley as some demon or devil because they don't understand the occult, because they've been programmed and spooktified, and automatically when they hear Aleister Crowley, oh my God, he was the devil, this and that. He was a very, disturbed individual. I would say that, but yet at the same time, very intelligent. And he definitely had tapped in to something. But in my opinion, this is just my opinion. In my opinion, with it and working with it over the years, I just think he let it consume, an aspect of it consume too much of him. And if you know the history of Crowley, you know what he went through with his wives and his family, you know how they some of them abhorred him because of his nature, and he was a wild dude. You know what I mean? So it ties in because it can help you understand, without that harmony, that there is that deep, dark, sadistic side that is necessary, but you can't let it consume, control, and master you. You have to master it. Just like the lighter side, you can't let control and consume and master you, because then you're living in a world of illusion and you're not dealing with the darker side where the strength and the energy comes from. So I think, to me, it deals with understanding harmony between both of those aspects. Okay. But that's a good question. What's happening, Sister Oni? All right. Okay. I'm just going to skip some of the personal comments. Okay. Oni types in Odu Ifa, Ogbe Meje. It says too much light will blind you. The Meje are the twins, right? Or as they say in Budon, the Marasa, right? I actually had received my Mejes back in 2003. I received them in Ifa, not Vudon. Just want to be clear on that. And they are powerful spirits, right? They are the twins, right? As I said, the Marasa, the Abeye. They are very powerful spirits if you understand and know how to work with them. And they do impart wisdom, but they have to be treated in essence spiritually like children, but they will give you good advice. And when, again, I know you're speaking of it in the sign, but yes. Only goes on to say Cowrie divination is my favorite. I do tarot cards and coins. I read fire sometimes. Yeah, that was in the earlier when I was talking about. Yes, divination is something you will find a system that a black magician will use for not all. I'm not saying all do, but a lot on the majority will use in some shape, form, or fashion. Okay. Oh, excuse me. All right, Tarot, ultimate of all things. That divination will happen live. Sometimes in my life, in front of my eyes, is very strange when it will happen. That's good. That's an experience that you can build on, right? Oni types in, I like the coconut shell reading. What's the other divination called? Camelensions at Brother B. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Maybe you spelt it wrong. Maybe you went down further. I know you got the Dilagoon, which is the ebe using the chains. I know you have the cowrie shells, the Ifa tray, the shell reading like you were talking about, the obi, right, with a coconut reading. Maybe the spelling was wrong. I think you're referring to some call it the ebe chain or the Dilagoon. Maybe you put something down further. I'll take a look. Okay, I'm going to skip some of the personal comments. Okay, I'm just typing some questions. I'm going to stay on for about 15, 20 more minutes. I want to make sure you got questions, for the topics. I know you got a lot of I'm skipping the comments between. I'm going to keep that between you guys. All right. Okay, that's just comments between each other. Okay. Yeah, we got Sonia as the moderator. She got the tool. All right, well, B, I got my little drums on it. Yeah, I remember you had that little drum there. You got to start smacking that thing, man, playing that thing. Let me tell you something, man. Speaking of that, and I mentioned, I think on the last video, the importance of drums in those type of workings. For those that don't know, they're one of the, or if not, the essential element, to that particular working. So, yeah, definitely work with those. All right. So, Tarek, ultimate of all things. Yes, that's true. You're living only, your perception. Anything you think will manifest, and you have to deal with it consciously or unconsciously. You don't really have a choice, unfortunately. So, in cases like that, you're more focused on your plan on dealing with it when it comes. But unfortunately, some people don't prepare for either or, and that's where they get stuck. All right. So what else we got? Sister Oni types in, the universe responds to you vibrationally. Yeah. The frequency and the energy you send out, obviously, is what you're going to draw to you, So it's like a magnet, whatever energy you've given off, you're going to attract, signal. So that's a give me. So when using basic common sense like that, that's why I said when most people are going through things, right, they don't want to analyze their immediate surroundings, right? They might be in a bad situation or scenario, but they're not paying attention to the basic things going on around them. The company they keep, places they go, circle of friends. Then sometimes little basic simple things like that explain why they are attracting or having issues or dealing with that type of energy. All right. So that's very important to understand. So when you use that term, That's a good metaphor or explanation to explain it. The universe does respond to you vibrationally. Okay. Gypsy Goddess says, I worship my gorgeous melanated booty, baby. There you go. So you still be fronting. You still close. You should have been at the ritual, and you're probably closest than anybody here. We'll see. We'll see. All right, Andre Pope. What's funny is I used to listen to a so-called occultist back in the late 80s to 90s that was very idiotic. He used to say that we should not go in this places of European establishments because they will zap your power, which is stupidity. If you are your God, nothing can hurt or harm you unless you allow it or them to. And that's what I'm saying. See, we all came up in them circles, right? How can you be God? And most of them circles taught that, the original man was, is God and is powerful than any other thing. So how can you fear something, quote unquote, in an ideology that's taught to you as lesser than you? And usually when somebody's telling you stuff like that, and again, granted, back then, we didn't know what we knew now. When somebody's telling you to stay away from something or don't do something or don't do this because it's usually because there's something they don't want you to find out. You understand? And that's the whole point. It can't harm you unless you allow it. And actually, if you know what you knew now, you would be able to use your energy to dominate them as opposed to vice versa. So you can't be a true occultist if you were teaching it the other way. Then that wouldn't make any sense. I mean, definitely not now, knowing what we all know now. Okay. Oni types in Santissima Muerte called me in a dream, and I definitely involved spiritually, if nothing else, which should be the point. Like Brother B said, everything else comes after automatically. That's correct. Tarek, ultimate of all things and all is mental. It's not even real as we think. We are all still a star's experience within the darkness of darkness. Yeah, because you got to understand, when we talk about reality, right, what's real, what's not real, and when we connect it to that concept, all is mental is all, that's where perception plays a large part in the scheme of things, because it's how we perceive things that gives it the reality that the individual is giving it. So when we talk about what's real and what's truth, that reality and that truth, what might be real for me may not be real for the next person, and vice versa, because of that principle right there. So we have to learn to connect it to that, in the sense that, when we say it's not as real as we think, right? It just depends on, in that thinking, one, what it is you're thinking about, two, how you're perceiving it. Because if somebody's looking from an outside perspective, if somebody makes a statement, right? For an example, like, let's just use what Oni just typed in a second ago, right? She typed in that she had a dream, and it definitely involved her spiritually, if nothing else, which should be the point. Now, we can only understand or perceive that to a certain extent because Oni had that experience, okay? Now, on the surface, we get an idea. She had some type of experience that affected her, and it caused some, as she explained, some type of evolution or evolving spiritually. But we can't perceive in depth and detail to the reality of what extent that happened to her. So that's what I'm saying. Perception plays a part. When we look at it in the, how we apply it to ourselves, right? It's the same thing. We're constantly experiencing. We're constantly growing. We're constantly trying to go. And that's why we say, go into the inner depths of your subconscious mind, the primordial chaos of your subconscious mind. Call it, the darkness of all darkness, right? Call it whatever you like. But that is where some of the answers to the questions start to rise to the surface. So yes, it's a constant process. You're constantly, striving for that. And your experiences are going to help define, again, that level of perception on how you see those things. Okay. But yes, we are only, really tapping in, or sometimes it might appear like it's a real in deep or in-depth level, but we're really scratching the surface, as they say. Okay. All right. What else we got? Yeah, Oni brings up a good point. Today is celebrated for Yeshua Legba, and it's the third, this number as well. You can harness the power more that's not making you a slave, that's tuning into the energy within. That's true. Now, you can work with any multiples of 3, technically with Legba. You can work with 9, and you will find 9 as a sacred number. Also, dealing with him at the ritual, we actually tolled the bell 9 times before we started the opening of the gates ritual. 21, which is another sacred number. It's anything that is a multiple of 3. 3 times 7 is 21. 2 and 1 is 3, etc. Those are all sacred numbers. If you're using the numerology aspect to tap into the energy of that spirit to unlock that portion of your psyche, you can use any of the multiples of 3. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Oni typed in, shit, I'm having my own. My daughter and I were just talking about this. You got to love yourself. Take care of you first. That's the first law of the universe, self-preservation. Don't let nobody shit you or fool you, because if you were put into a situation, right, where everything was taken from you and you had to survive, you would go into self-preservation mode, right? That's why I laugh at all the quote-unquote peace and love do-gooders, right? Everything is peace and love, and we must come together, and the Black community must unite. We must put the Black dollar together. All that is bullshit to keep you distracted from self-mastery. And I told you before, sounds good, but something should tell people that there's something wrong with their problem, where I can only test in my life's experience. I was hearing that back in the 70s, still not getting done. I was hearing it back in the 80s, still not at that point. I was hearing it in the 90s, still not getting to that point. I was hearing it in the early 2000s to 2010, still not at that point. I've been hearing it from 2010 to the present day. The problem is, if I've been hearing since the 70s that we need to unite and come together and put the Black dollar together, and here we are in 2018, and we're still talking about the same shit. Hello, people. What is that a confession of? The answer is right there. It's a bunch of bullshit. It shows that the problem is with the individuals who are saying that. You understand? Because bottom line is, when you look in these conscious circles that are out there today, and I've said it a million times, they're all talking unity. They're all talking coming together. But all they do is have these senseless arguments and debates over nonsense and nothing. Nobody's coming together. Nothing. There's no problem. I'm not talking about the standard progress. Look, let me explain something. Let me give you an example. See, the problem with a lot of these conscious circles, I ain't knocking nobody if you do that. So I don't want nobody to take what I'm about to say wrong. Because you set up a table, on 125th Street or somewhere in the city in New York, and you're selling incense, oils, and soaps, that's not a business. That's a hustle. Okay? I want to make that clear. Don't get that confused. That's not a business. That's a hustle. The problem is we've deceived ourselves sometimes into the hustle of things and not into the reality of things. Okay? Bottom line is, you can't fight a war, one, without money, one, without weapons. We're trying to fight a war with no weapons and no money because we're approaching it all wrong. I've said this a million times. Okay? Step one is getting yourself right in relation to Oni's statement. You must love yourself and take care of you first. The problem is, like I said earlier in the beginning of the video, a lot of us we're on save the world missions, kumbaya, peace and love, unite. Everybody needs to unite, but we can't even pay our bills. We can't pay the light bill. We can't pay our mortgage or our rent. We can't put food on the table consistently. We can't raise our children productively and put them in the right schools and get them the right education. But we want to talk about unite and then come together. Well, first and foremost, get the necessities down packed. You understand? Once you have that, then maybe you can branch out and start to help others. So you say, well, what's the solution? What's the answer? It's deeper than just starting a group of people and putting the black dollar together. Where are you going to put that black dollar? What businesses? Again, I'm not talking about a hustle. We're talking about, look, setting up your own education system. I don't want to get into all this politics, so I'm going to talk about this briefly and move on because I'm not interested in this shit at all because I already been down this road, already know the answers to it, and I've gravitated a certain way where I don't even want to fuck with it no more. But I'm just going to throw something out there real quick. The only way you separate and do for self is you have to completely create your own system, your own education system, your own financial institutions, most importantly, your own healthcare systems. Let me give you an example. The thing that I mentioned this a couple years ago in a video, probably 2013-ish. I can't remember which video, but it's on here. The thing that was disturbing to me, you have all these conscious comedic groups that talk black this, black that, the white man's this, we got to separate from the white man's the devil, blah, blah, blah. Look what they did to Dr. Ben. That still don't sit well to me to this day. And now, I read Dr. Ben's book and I was a student in the sense that I studied his material. I'm not going to say I was one of his personal students because I wasn't. But if you guys know the history of Dr. Ben and the last stages of his life when he was ill, all these people that revered Dr. Ben as this great God and he was such a great champion for black people, why did they put him in a nursing home in the Bronx that was probably one of the worst nursing homes in the city that didn't have a good reputation? And they put him in the hands of white folks and they let him sit in a damn nursing home till his time was up, where we as people didn't even have the facilities, the money, the resources to be in the care of one of his own so he can transition the right way. And then if you've seen the videos online of his funeral, the man got a Christian burial. Now, that don't sit well with me. And that's why I can't co-sign on any of that conscious shit. I'm sorry. Take it as you want. One, I'm not going to pretend like I really care because I don't. Whether you like what I just said or not is irrelevant. I couldn't give two shits. So if there are, or somebody that watches this video later, if you get offended, it is what it is. But those that know, if we can't even take care of our great elders and leaders, that you take a man that gave so much of his life to teach, educate, and transition and change people, and the way he was rewarded, he was put up in some shitty ass nursing home that quote unquote wasn't controlled by us. They were giving him medicines and all types of shit. Okay. Now I find a problem with that. And then you have these same groups talking about, we got to come together and unite. Well, shit, if you couldn't even take care of an elder like that, what makes you think I'm going to put my soul in your hands and trust that the right thing will be done when you couldn't do the right thing with the elder? Same thing with Dr. Delbert Blair. He passed away and nobody said shit. Right? I didn't hear really anything, even from some of the students he influenced, some elders that are still on the circuit today teaching. Now, though everybody may not agree with what Dr. Delbert Blair taught, but there was a lot they did get from him. I'm using these as examples. Again, I don't want to get into a bashing thing. It's not that I'm trying to bash. I'm trying to connect this into relation to where we are on this path. And I'm saying, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, don't care to be involved in it no more. And this path is everything that's not about. So we're done with the Mickey Mouse clubs on this path. We're done with the groupies. We don't feel the sense that we need to belong to something because we want to be down with what everybody's doing. I don't care. I couldn't care anybody that watches this channel and think this is completely left field to what it is, the norm that they're with. Oh, well, it's as easy as just clicking the shit off and going somewhere else. It's that simple. Because if you think I'm going to entertain what you like and don't like, you out of your damn fucking mind. Wouldn't even waste my energy. And they come in once in a blue moon. Yeah, I don't like this. Hey, you said this. Or they come in and play the race card because I may not fit the criteria to their likings and standards. Just you're not quite ethnic enough. I couldn't give a fuck about any of that. If you think I lose sleep over any of that shit, you fucking, you really don't know me. You understand? So we don't care about any of that stuff on this path. We have to take care of ourselves first in relation to Oni's question. I know that kind of went to left field. But yes, this path first and foremost is about taking care of you first. Okay? I think I explained that. I hope that gets the point across. All right? Okay. I'll skip some of this. Andre Pope. Okay, it's conversations in between. We should remember pretty a lot of it. Yeah, this is a good point Oni makes. She types in, like, and I've seen this too at the Orishi Bembe's. Pretty interesting. A lot of acting at the ones I went to back in. I've seen that too. Look, you can remove all of that nonsense. Like I said, I think I mentioned this on last. If you come with a clear mind, not an open mind, because as I said before, the open mind leaves that doorway open to straddling the fence. Well, the way we do it, and I'll tell you what we can, and again, there's some people in the room. There's two folds to the ritual. There's one, a more tranquil part to prepare yourself. Like, since we did the ritual, I can tell you the basics. We started out with an invocation to Dambella Wido, right? We had an altar set. I'm going to post some of the short video clip that we took of it. Because in the Vodun Pantheon, you should always invoke or start with an invocation to Dambella Wido because he ensures that spirit ensures the, ritual going very productive. And then Papa Legba follows. So there's a tranquil part of the ritual that prepares the mind, right? And then because we probably won't do that ritual again anytime soon, then some individuals were put into the darkness. I'll leave it at that. And they were taken into the area where we actually did the drumming ritual. Okay. So now the psyche has been prepared because the first portion of that ritual is to prevent what Oni's talking about, because it'll remove all your preconceived notions, or if you're coming with the intent to act and plan, it will eliminate all that. So anybody that's conducting rituals along the line would know how to, one, prepare individuals so they can be receptive. And then when that is done in accordance, you will find the experiences become genuine individually and collectively. But to attest to what Oni's saying, for sure, I have seen that, some funny ass shit. Tarek Ultimate of all things typed in, the relationship of religion is universal laws that will never change, but the religion will die and the principle universal law will never change. And that's true. And the magician understands the difference between universal law and man-made law, and know how they actually work and operate. And it's very, very important to understand that working magic. Now, what gives you a good understanding of that? Now, the problem is you'll see in a lot of Kemetic circles, they always push ma'at. You must understand the principles of ma'at, which is true. But as I said before, to understand the universal law, the spiritual laws, and man-made laws, and how they connect. Remember, ma'at represents the objective. The 7 Hermetic principles represent the objective. Now you understand why I'm always telling you, go into the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti, because you truly cannot understand ma'at if you don't understand the 7 Hermetic principles. Because I could always, quote unquote, detect a fluffinator Kemetic person when they were on this ma'at, and you must obtain ma'at. It's just, it's this one-sided sense of fluffiness. And that's not how it works. All right. Okay, Oni types in, you're going to destroy some shit when you see Sekhmet or Ishu in your dreams. Low. Well, let me tell you something, man. Papa Legba, like I say, I can attest to a lot of things were destroyed about me spiritually leading up to the whole process of this ritual. It was a month-long experience for me, literally. It was a day in and day out, several week experience from gathering the implements for the ritual, doing something that I went through personally here, setting up an altar, because when I tapped into the psyche to open up the gateway, that spirit of Papa Legba, when it was activated, wanted things done a certain way. So it was just it was a month-long experience for me. And Sister Sonia can attest, running back and forth to the store, just in the middle of the night, certain things popping into your head, just random thoughts. It's just, look, when they say Papa Legba is the great communicator, there's nothing more truer than that, because the communications come clear. So when you're saying, I go, Papa Legba, open the gates, be careful what you ask for. Now, I knew what I was asking for. So when the gates were open and I wanted those influx of thoughts of clarity on things that I was not aware of, they came and I got what I asked for. But now the responsibility comes in not bitching and complaining about it, but go ahead and carrying out the work. So the whole process, because I remember when it popped up, the whole process for the several weeks leading up to the ritual, my experience and some others, even I know Sister Sonia, Brother Jack, I know he had some, was dealing with some personal things that came to the surface in the last week or two leading up to the ritual. I mean, I remember on Friday night, and I know some people might have saw it when we were doing the invocation for Dembala Wida. Well, he started it in Creole, and actually it was a combination of Creole and Benin language or Congolese. He started to boil over. I thought he was going to pass out, and I had to stop for a minute and tap him, grab him, and sometimes if the spirit's overtaken somebody, there's two things you can do. There's a certain part of the back of the neck you hit him, or blow in the ears, right? Just in case anybody ever wants to get somebody out of a trance, blow in the ears, and there's a right here where the occult nerves on the back of the neck. You hit them gently on the back of the neck, because when a spirit is trying to come or mount, or if the person becomes a victim to it, or they're going to pass out, or whatever happens, there's a way to revive them. Well, he caught that right in the beginning, and he was killed over like this, because the night that you guys, if you saw the night we shot the video, and you heard me talk, that was the 2 nights before, that Wednesday. He came through so we could go over a few things. And from the moment he walked into the room, he was tapping into shit. I was joking on the video that he was knocking shit over. He walked over to the voodoo altar because since it's naturally connected to him by blood, he had a different, stronger natural connection to it. Where, I know you guys might have seen it a little bit on the video. If you go back and watch the video, Jack was there, but he wasn't there, if you understand what I'm saying. Because he was, and there were some things we had discussed off the camera I ain't going to talk about. But he was there, but he wasn't. He was there physically, but he wasn't there mentally from the very moment he walked in to the stuff we were preparing to the part of playing the drums. So I said, well, let's just hit these drums. And, But anyway, I'm trying to give somebody the behind the scenes internal aspect that leads up to doing some of these things. It's not some shit we just go, yeah, man, let's do this. We are really trusting our inner aspect. What guides us to do these working is what our spirit taps into naturally. Like, it's how it's been going for the last couple of years. One thing piggybacks off another. And it's just natural as day. It's not like we got to sit down and go, damn, you got some ideas, or you got any ideas? No. Boom. The work flows in perfect harmony. And there's a system and a method to what we do. But most definitely, you will see, well, the best way to see it, it's hard to really see it. You will understand it when you experience it. And some of you have, so you know what I'm talking about. All right. So Oni types in, they even destroyed shrines, talking in reference to the mentioned deities before. All right, so what else we got? Let me throw this out there. There was a movie, some of y'all might have seen it. I want to throw this out there because I just watched it the other night. I watched it on Saturday. If you guys have not seen the movie Hereditary, go watch it. Some of you might have. The movie Hereditary deals with one of the Goetia demons, King Paimon. If you worked with the Goetia, you know who he is. Paimon. They even use the sigil throughout the entire movie. That's all I'm going to tell you about it. It's about a family. They tap into an aspect of King Paimon. And if you know who Paimon is in the Goetia, he was kind of like Lucifer's right-hand man. If you study Goetia, you know what I'm talking about. Go watch the movie. It's all right. They throw a little entertainment in there, far-fetched. But if you look at the concept, it's going to kind of deal with some of the work we're getting ready to do the end of the month. All right. But again, the movie's called Hereditary. It was just in the theaters. It might still be in or just came out of the theaters. And if you have Terrarium TV or one of those channels where you can get movie feeds, I don't believe it's on DVD yet. I'm almost certain it's not because I think it just came out of the theaters or still in the theaters. But some of you might have seen it. It's called Hereditary. Definitely take a look at it. It deals with a lot of what we deal with. All right, Oni types in, I met a power priest years ago. He looked very androgynous, like one of those satyrs. Shapely, too. Very different looking man. Her had beautiful fingernails. Androgyny, like I said, I'm not going to get into that too much deep tonight, but remember, Krita Mutra, right? He talks about androgyny, homosexuality, these hermaphrodite-looking beings as being gatekeepers, right? As they are shown in a lot of these ancient cultures. So you'll see a lot of that, and they're said to be by nature highly spiritual. And sometimes you see that androgyny reflect, and I've seen that a lot too, in whether it be Palo or Ifa. So you will see that. It's there. Okay. Yes, it's the Sony typed in isolation and darkness ritual. Yep. Well, we're getting ready to do that. Oni types in, I'm way better in the dark now, brother. Well, I'm glad because remember, one must go into the darkness to do the work of the light. It's unavoidable. And religious people got to understand that because they're very Bible. In the very first chapter, very first couple of verses confirms that theory, because it says, in the beginning, God created the light. In the beginning, God said, let there be light, which is confirmation he was in darkness. I'm saying this from a religious perspective. So darkness cannot be associated with evil because their very God or creator of the Bible existed in that darkness. And that's really right there, a telltale in front of their face. To really understand the true nature of who and what God and the creator is, you must go into that primordial chaos to even fathom the answer to that question. Because remember, the confusion started when light came into existence. And that's what the whole Masonic rituals or initiatic rituals in general are centered around. That's why you're blindfolded and in the darkness in a lot of these rituals, because you're not relying on the illusionary light that you use with these two eyes. You're relying on this eye, the third eye, because when you're blindfolded, You're relying on the pineal or the third eye, your natural senses to get you through the ritual. When you're blindfolded in the darkness in that Masonic degree, be it the EA, the FC, or the M&M degree, right? You can't see a damn thing, but you hear. You're using your senses. You start to sense, but you know what's weird? Even though these eyes are covered, when you're in there for a while, you do start seeing things. Not what you would see with these two eyes. I'm trying to explain it the best way I can. And then as you start to accept being in that state of darkness, which is real divineness, which is in a real state of pure God, for lack of a better word, you start to become unstrikable. You start to become very comfortable. And that's the purpose, to understand that concept. Because you can't zone in, concentrate, and focus until you're blindfolded in that darkness. Because you would be distracted if the ritual wasn't done in that setting, that type of ritual. If all the lights were on and you had all these distractions around you to keep you unfocused. But when you're in that darkness and them physical eyes is covered, oh, you focus now. You in. You blocked out everything. Anything you came in there thinking about and you now forgot. Only fucking thing you're thinking about is what's going on in that particular situation. That's the power of the primordial chaos. That's the power of the darkness. That's the power we as black magicians tap into. That's where we get our energy from. That's what we mean when we say, and that's why the book I was reading from tonight, The Dark Arts, it teaches you that concept. That's where you want to be, in the darkness, not in the light, because the light causes confusion. You again, when you're in the lodge on that EA degree and you kneel down before the altar, and at the very end, when the brothers come behind you and remove the blindfolds and they all clap and say, "Let there be light," and then the blindfolds removed and all the lights on in the lodge, you're blinded for a quick minute or two. Your eyes gotta adjust. So now the confusion comes when they say, "Let there be light," because when the light shined in the darkness and the darkness comprehended it not, right? That's in the book of John, first chapter, the very first verse. That light that is referring to is not physical light, it's the intellect, right? That's what a Luciferian obtains, right? To say you're a Luciferian or sons of the illuminated ones, Lucifer means the illuminated one, right? You are illuminated by the intellect that you are trying to obtain in the darkness. That pure intellect resides in darkness. That's the real light. That's the light that shines in the darkness. Anybody that's traveled through lives knows that's Masonic. Now, a religious person will tell you, well, that light was Jesus. That everything, you got to see, there we are, and back to man worship, because when you're dealing with the exoteric aspect of things, that's the explanation. When you're dealing with the esoteric aspect of things, I'm giving you the real definition and explanation. And anybody that's been through the sacred mysteries will tell you the same. So that light that and Dr. Edward Bruce Biden's book, he comes from a whole African, spiritual, and more of a scientifical. That's what dark light consciousness really breaks down when it starts getting into the neuromelanin, the spark, or they are the pathways or the roads that connect you to all of the intellect that exists, not just in the universe, but the multiverses. That light or intellect is sparked by your neuromelanin. So if your neuromelanin is jacked up, you can't receive those messages. Just look at it as pathways or roadways, or look at it as the highway being clogged up with traffic. You can't get to your destination. That's why it's important to understand your neuromelanin. Not just your neuromelanin, because people are so focused on the physical melanin, they think because a person is light or dark skin determines how powerful their melanin is. Then you obviously don't understand neuromelanin. You're completely confused. You ain't got no clue, right? Your neuromelanin is your main conductor, or one of the key aspects that links you into all consciousness in the multiverses, right? And they know by way of synthetics or all synthetic drugs, medications, and all these other things damage that connection, right? But I ain't gonna get into all that. That's a whole nother thing. I don't even know where the hell that came from, or something. One of the questions here, I forgot what the fuck we was talking about. It was in reference to Oni's question. I'm way better in the dark now. See where the darkness can take you? We went from there to there to there to there back. That's just how it is. All right. I light a candle in the dark, though. That's okay. You're getting there. Continuous work in progress. Say it louder. It's okay. You're getting there. Oh, 8:44. I don't know if Jack's still here, but peace, brother. Okay. I am Shangaraj. What colors and offerings are best for working with Tahuti and thought? Now, it's funny you bring that up because right now, September 21st is the fall equinox. And in Magical System, that is a great day to do a working with Tahuti. The best colors to use for Tahuti are orange. Okay. Orange is one of the most, not a reddish orange, an actual orange. And also in the OTO Lodge, they do a ritual in the fall equinox for Tahuti because Tahuti brings about, since we're going into a transitional stage, you go in these equinoxes, before you go into the darkness, they invoke, which will be the winter solstice, you invoke the energy of Tahuti again for the knowledge, for the wisdom, because he deals with being the scribe, over science, mathematics, knowledge in general. You want that knowledge and wisdom to prepare you, because remember, this is centered around going to the cycles of life with nature in conjunction with how the changes in your body. Because remember, you mentally go through changes through different equinoxes, through different seasons. You will notice as you go through different periods, some are sharper in certain equinoxes because they are spiritually more connected to it. And some people's powers are weaker than others. But understanding your nature and your connection and relationship to them and how you can strengthen them regardless of what cycle you're in, you're able to master all aspects of that. But working with Tahuti adult. Now, offerings. Now, you get any of the, if you're going to do the offering thing, which you will find that in Egyptian culture to an extent, not so much as you would say in Ifa or Vudong, etc. Beer, barley, wine, but I would take it to a more magical level. If I'm doing on this path, I would negate the traditional aspect. If I was going to put implements or offerings there for Tahuti, I would put things there that tap into what he represents, consciousness. I would put a quill there, for an example. Maybe put something by an offering like a nice journal or notebook, but something a little bit more fancy because he's the scribe. He records, right? You could put tools there for mathematics, such as the fuck is the thing called? A compass. Things like that. See, we gotta think, because remember, I'm trying to embody. If I'm going to work with the offering aspect and colors, orange. In addition to orange, blue is another good color. But orange is a more fiery color because orange deals with the higher spiritual nature, and it can bring about rapid change. Again, if I'm going to work with the offering and connect the colors and all those things, I would work with implements or things in relation that I'm offering outside of the regular traditional food offerings, which you can see barley, beer, and and all those things. That's the traditional things. But I'm not going to work with it. It's just me. I'm not going to work with it with that aspect. I'm going to leave offerings, tools, and implements that connect with Tahuti. Because I know, because when I look at it, it's going to activate within me things that represent knowledge, growth from a knowledge and a wisdom perspective. Okay, that's how I would do it. But I would suggest to everybody, which we're here September 3rd, I would do some type of working for Tahuti for the fall equinox if you want to really tap into that energy. Okay. All right, I think we're almost at the end here. Where the fuck am I? Skipped. Ah, damn it. Hold on, man. I hate when this fucking happens. Yeah, it skipped on me. Hold on one second. Fuck. Bear with me. Damn. I realized it was this long. I may not be able to get through all this. Hold on. Okay, where am I? Damn. This thing. Hold on. People, this thing really skipped. Oh man, I'm gonna have to speed through these. It didn't skip. I didn't realize how long. All right, hold on. Damn, this shit is way longer than I thought. I don't know what the fuck happened here. Hold on. I'm gonna have to skip through some. Okay, here we go. Okay, I left off here. Okay. Oh, there we are. All right, let me scroll down and get my spot. I found it. Only I'm gonna breeze through some of them because I didn't realize that there was this many of them here, so I can get through most of them. Mercury, Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Mars, Sun, Moon, sigils are extremely powerful in sigil magic. True indeed. Yeah. At Shango, orange. That's then I was just saying that kind of sister Sonia was co-signing on that. Only my daughter is. Okay, I'm gonna skip this. Okay, Jack. Wow, how can I imagine the Gypsy guys? Oh wow, I can imagine the diamond. I can't get along with other earth signs. Love them water people. Divorce the Virgo. Never again will mess with bold male. Sex addictive though, freaks. I'm still processing the drumming ceremony, having flashbacks. Yeah, and I explained that, and that's okay, and that's actually a good thing. Some of the rituals, and this was one of those type of rituals, and when we had our discussion afterwards, I explained that to people. It stays with you for a while. You'll find, I mean, it's always there where you can actually, utilize it and grasp it for something down the road. Trust me when I tell you. But it all takes a while to sink in. You're going to have your experiences because remember, I said everybody had an individual experience and a collective experience, and it was going on simultaneously. Though we were doing things as a group, there were people locked there having their own experience. And trust me, they were having their own experience. So it will take some time. So give it some time. And I did respond back to one of you. I think I sent you an email. I got to check if you responded back, Sister Trainer. I'll take a look at it. If not tonight, tomorrow. Stuffed Dog typed in, Brother Beniti, I was wondering about Google Hangouts for the rituals so we can join the rituals over the internet and follow along at home. I don't know if I'm too crazy about that. I'm going to tell you why. Yes, you can. I mean, Google Hangouts, you can get up to, I think, about 40. I mean, depends on your system. I just don't know if I'm crazy about that because of prying eyes. Now, yeah, you can control the invite. That might be something I would do it off air because when I do private class sessions, you could do it off air. It's a possibility. I would never do it live on air. I wouldn't even think of it. One, because it's just my opinion. I just think it destroys the sanctity of the ritual. Two, I wouldn't feel comfortable if, even if we have invites, if we don't really know the person, they might have 4, 5, 6, 7 other people watching there. I just don't know if that's really productive. I know with this age of, social media, I'll be honest with you, I'm not real crazy about that because I like to keep it more, private. I just don't think that's just me. And I know your intent is good and I feel you as far as participating. I get it. So I'm not questioning your intent. It would be not really being familiar with other individuals, say, that got the invite on that level. And I don't know if I'd really be cool with that. Not only that, we would have to make sure everybody there is cool with that because that would be their privacy too, because some people may not want their personal experiences, private, because a lot of stuff goes on at those rituals. So hopefully maybe you can actually physically get to one. And again, just want to make it clear, we don't charge to come to any of the rituals. You just need to show up. So the only thing you would be responsible for, I'm not sure where you live or what state you're in, you would just need to find your way there, or find a hotel to stay at for a day, and then show up. So that's all required. And, I'm more inclined to keep it like that because I don't want to ruin, and I don't say this in a religious way, I don't want to ruin the sanctity of the ritual. And I don't want to, I think involving social media on that level, you'd also have to factor in, would the participants be okay with people viewing their personal experience? Like, I don't know if, if that would be okay with them. But I'll be honest with you, I am not too crazy about that idea. I prefer the individual just find their way there. But I do understand your point. I do understand your intent, participating and wanting to experience. Okay. All right. What else we got? Okay. Tyrek, ultimate of all things. Imagine we walking in there and someone is walking in the middle, and we look at different sides of the person. We still can't know his or identification. Oh yeah. I only that's forgot. Today was a Labor Day parade. That's right. Forgot about that. That's big in Eastern Parkway. Yep. I've been to a bunch of them over the years. Totally forgot about that. Sister Trina Hurt types, and it's not for the weak. You got to know that it's right for you. It's true. You know, yeah, man. It was like I say, yeah. It's hard to put a lot of those things into words, but everybody that showed up this past Friday, the energy was good. Brother Adler had a good experience, and Trina and her husband. And I'm not going to share their experiences because it was personal unless they share it, with themselves. But I just think keeping that personal is just not something I would want to publicize. And I don't think any really a lot of spiritualists, quote unquote, will tell you some things need to stay in the chamber room. You understand what I'm saying? That's just how I feel about it. And I think most people, probably would. All right. Okay. So, and like I said, the shit we're getting ready to do this month and next month, yeah, it's going to be some good stuff. All right. Yeah. Okay, I guess I'm not sure if you guys were talking about what I was talking about earlier, but I'm going to skip some of that. Oh, yeah, I guess. So, yeah, I see some type of these stories about these people so comedic and black, but not ready to do the work. Yeah, so I guess some of that commentary you guys were having back and forth was the story I was telling you about that lady earlier. Yeah, I mean, the thing we always tell people, you'll hear us always talking about this. Look, I don't want you to get confused and come. And some people think that this is it's an African, it's a Kemetic Egyptian thing. It is, but it isn't. It's a little bit more in depth than that because it embodies. We fuck with a little bit, of everything. So, and when I was telling that story about that lady earlier that showed up, yeah, she just, she thought it was, Kemetic and spiritual, and it's not. It's deeper than that. All right, what else we got? All right, what else? I'm going to skip some of the personal comments. All right, Gypsy Gods. My biggest issue is shyness. I'm sure that I'll be transmuted when I get there. And yes, my logistics still been crazy as hell. You can call me if I don't go to the next one. Oh, man. I don't even want to say what I'm going to say. You got people in your area with cars. Okay? Don't make excuses. That's all I'm going to say. Let me stop messing with you. I feel you. But yeah, you definitely need to make it to one. All right. Okay. All right, I'm skipping some of the personal comments. And that's true. You don't need no, in relation to earlier, when I was telling you, Gypsy Gods, when you were talking about the Arab music, yeah, people are ignorant. All right, I'm going to skip some of this stuff. Only good point. When I was talking about Aleister Crowley earlier, said his wife was the vessel. He had a lot to take it. Aleister Crowley was a Libra with Leo rising his tarot card. He named himself was the Prince of Wands low. Yeah, he was again, in my experience, in the whole OTO thing, I told you when we were going through the Book of Law earlier, very, very, I hate to use the word disturbed because I don't want to create the illusion. He went off the deep end, but he was still, in a sense, in his mind. But I think he just let that, again, as I said earlier, I just think he let that aspect consume him, in my experience with it. Because now seeing how the rituals are constructed in OTO and going through them, it helped me further understand his way of thinking. Because obviously he was heavily influenced, as I said before, by Masonry, because the signs and the grips on the degrees are very Masonic in nature. Some of the rituals are almost written like some of the Blue House degrees, but adjusted with a lot of Eastern and Arab mysticism in it. And again, it's centered around the character Saladin, which I ain't going to get into right now. I talked a little bit about that in previous videos, but it helped me I see where he was coming from. I understand. So when I look at the whole experience of the Book of the Law and how he contacted this being Alawas, which really is set when you really understand the breakdown of it, he raised himself up to the point where he tapped up into a higher aspect of his subjective and he had an experience. And that's how you have to look at it. So when you take from his experiences as they're being shared, you take what relates and connects to you, and the rest of it, you just don't deal with it, because some of it I can't really, I get it, but it don't really do nothing for me. So I just got to leave it where it is. But that's just with anything you deal with. It's not just that, but in relation to that, yeah. What else we got? Emperor Fireon, Lucith. Wow, I've learned so much from this video. Thanks. No problem. Ham Shangham, blah, blah, blah. It's the crowd, Libra, Oni. I'm skipping all this stuff. So you guys are kind of having. Yeah, Whooper Duper Bobby. That's what I was referring to earlier. In a video, Bobby said that in video. Crowley said his visions of a West was a black man. Now, that's the part that I'm saying. When I was talking about earlier, when I heard that, I've never seen that in any of Crowley's writings. It never was reported in any of his works. He never explained it that he was an extraterrestrial coming back on a spaceship to save black people. So I just think this is a case. Sometimes we see something in these circles and we take it and we run with it. Now, unless he was tapped into some shit I wasn't aware of, maybe so. But I can only base it on my experience with it. Yes, and Whoop Duper, if you could find, I know I have it saved in the archives. If you can maybe email it, or if you know it offhand, type it into this chat room, that video, so people can actually go look at it. I can't remember, because as you know, Bobby Hammond has a lot of videos. I can't remember what lecture it is. It might even have the title Alawas in it, if I'm not mistaken. But I would have to go look on his channel. And I know it's not hard to find. All right, what else we got? Yeah, his second wife, who was actually the vessel, because remember, she got quite ill after all that went down. And when she was the vessel that the Book of the Law was being communicated to inside the chamber, as he described. Yes, that's true. Okay. And that's a good, there you go. That's kind of probably the way XJM Love described Crowley. That's the words I was looking for right there. Interesting. Yay. Highly passionate and intelligent in the weirdest way. There you go. That's what I was looking for, because I didn't want to paint it like he was crazy out of his mind, wasn't conscious or aware of what he was doing. But at first, it could come off that way to somebody. And it is. I understand it, but yes, that would be one of the best ways to describe it. Weird, but passionate and intelligent at the same time. That is an excellent way to describe it. And that's exactly how I feel, my experiences with it. Emperor Fire on top that I'm a beginner. I mix paganism with the left-hand path. Is that okay? Or if you do that, that's fine. There's no right. Again, there's no right or wrong. If you're incorporating that work and you're getting results and it's getting things done for you, you can employ whatever you want. I keep trying to tell you, one of the greatest things a black magician can do by demonstrating his power, his or her powers of wisdom, is taking any system and adjusting it to fit their methodology. You could take, I told you, I challenged everybody to do a test. Take a right-hand path fluffy system and deconstruct it, but reconstruct it in a Black Adept's perspective. Whether that be take for an example, the Catholic Mass or anything that's a quote unquote fluffy right-hand path, right? But make it darker, align it with the things that we talked about this evening. You could do that with paganism, even though a lot of paganism deals with earth magic, and there is earth magic tied into a lot of these systems, but you can take a lot of those quote unquote pagan things and make them more darker, more intense. Yep. XGM Love typed in, his energy threw me off. I shut the book and left it on. I sure didn't want to mount him low. Yeah, when you're reading the book of the law, it's a very, like I described earlier, it can be very disturbing. The guy's mind was very complex. His imagery and metaphors, how he describes things, the detailed adjectives he used, or in the experiences, not just in the book of the law, but in his work and writings, etc., showed the like you described, the complexity, weirdness, but passionate side. And he was definitely a unique individual, that's for sure. Okay. Yeah, only brought to a point in Crowley's tarot deck, and she had pointed that out to me. There was originally 3 magician cards in his Thoth deck. They removed the Magus, Trickster, and the Bear, Dreamer, Magus. Yes, that was taken out. The decks you get now don't have those 2 in there. That's true. Okay. Yeah, there you go. The spelling. Yes, the Kamalango and the Palo deviation. Okay, yeah, when you typed it in earlier, the spelling threw me off. Okay, so we were talking about Palo. Yes. And that's one of the systems of divination, the Kamalango, that they use to see if you're marked. When, again, I want to get into all Palo thing, but they can use that system of divination to see if it's marked in your blood, outside of being marked at some type of spiritual misa. Okay. So yes, now I understand you spelled it right. Okay. No, Gypsy Goddess. The next ritual is not a voodoo ritual. The one we're going to be doing on the 28th, again, it's the powers of darkness and the living bar of the Black Adept. We will be invoking the Akaru, spirits of the dead. It's gonna, and I don't know if you were on earlier, you might have heard me mention it. We will be working. It's got some elements of necromancy. We're working with the death current. It's going to have some aspect of Heka or Egyptian black magic. You also see some aspects of demonic integration. All right. So it'll have those 3 elements in the working. So it's completely going to a whole nother area as opposed to what, we did this past ritual. We will visit Boudon again in the future, but we asked the great communicator to open the gate, and this is what he opened the gate to. So that's where we're going next. The flyer will kind of depict. You'll see when I put the flyers out. Well, actually, my wife makes the flyers, so I gotta give her the credit for that. When I put the flyers out, the imagery that's on the flyers usually depicts the type of energy we're going to, well, not usually, it does depict the energy that we'll be working with. So all I can tell you is when you see the flyer, we got a really cool image of Baphomet on there, some skulls, pentagrams. Need I say more what we get ready to work with? We plan on in October. We know we're going to have a special get together where there's going to be a bunch of people coming from out of state. We are going to do the vampiric mass again, which we did a couple of months, the other month. That was very powerful because we had a portion of the ritual where we did some work with the Black Mirror. We had a couple different rooms set up. So we plan on redoing that one when a bigger group comes in October. Because that's definitely a ritual from the experience we all have from the last. We would want some other people to experience that ritual too. But this one will be dealing again with elements of necromancy, demonic integration, and Egyptian Heka. Okay. You're going to see all aspects of that involved in this ritual. And there's pieces from all of those systems taken. And this was something that was clear in the communication from opening the gates with Papa Legba, and got that within 2 days, clear, as I focused on, what came through. So as I said, everything we've been doing the last year just piggybacks one off of the other, clear as day. So next month we might be doing, I don't know, wherever it leads us. But that's where we're at. All right. What else we got? Got to wrap this up soon. Yeah, you got to be careful. Amazon got them bootleg decks. They do. Peace, Brother Ravana's on here. Okay. Real quick before I forget, saying that, we had talked. I know the schedule has been busy. So what we had decided, and I mainly wanted to do this because obviously we haven't been able to do the radio show. We used to do it every week. Well, we started out bi-weekly, then we went to every week, then we took it back to bi-weekly. And, that happens because there's just a lot of shit goes on, etc. So what we were talking about, because mainly so I know a lot of you guys have access to us, so it's easy to come on to YouTube. But what I get a lot of, as I mentioned a few weeks back, I get a lot of emails from the international people that used to listen to the radio show. And unfortunately, not all of them have access to us here on the internet for whatever reasons. A lot of them can't tune in. A lot of them maybe don't get a good enough feed. And I'm talking about people, overseas, etc., or the time zone don't work, or for whatever reasons, it's just not the same for them. So we had decided to, so I wanted to make this announcement because I had texted him yesterday and we had talked briefly about it when he was here, about doing it once a month, which wouldn't be a problem to commit. And then maybe if something changed down the road, doing it possibly twice a month, but I wouldn't say twice right away. We were possibly thinking I'm thinking either the first Thursday or maybe the second Thursday of the month. So we had made the decision to do that, the radio show, to either do that. We're either going to do it start this week or next week. We had mentioned the first, but I'm thinking maybe the second, only because that time of the month is usually pretty much neutral. I know there's not much that goes on. I know the end is no good. The last 2 weeks definitely ain't no good. So look for that, and we're probably going to put that back out there in the next few days. You should get an email. About it if you're on the list. The list should stay the same if you subscribe. I don't think anything changes with that. So, and then we also discussed about starting earlier. Rather than start at 9 o'clock, start at 8 o'clock. So, and again, I mean, for everybody, but more so, that's, more so for the international people. We felt that would be a good thing for us to do, and if it poses any problems, I mean, we just work around it. We might, hopefully we don't have to completely abandon it, but it was a lot of stuff going on. And so we want to start with that. Like I say, once a month. We don't want to really go beyond that at the moment. But again, if you look at the history, we started out, it was twice a month. Then we went to then it was 3 times a month. For a short period, we did it 3 out of the 4 weeks. And then we went to every week. And then we went back to 2 weeks, because that's just because, again, schedules and personal things just change. So we'll just go with the flow. We'll see how it goes. So look for that. We're going to put out a communication on that in the next few days. All right. So I wanted to put that out there. And Brother Ravana Noon was down here for the ritual. He drove down, and he got up in the morning and he bounced and went back. He had his experience there, but I'll let him share that with you. I'm sure he'll share that with you on his video. What else we got? All right, people, I'm just trying to get to any meat questions. I'm almost at the bottom. It's getting late, so I won't stay on too much longer. Only that Dr. Ben, that Dr. Ben situation was fucked up. I already addressed that, but yeah. Okay. Yes, only the Marasa are extremely powerful in voodoo. And I pulled that tarot card this morning for myself. I gave my bae some candles. Oh, they are so cute. Yeah. Like I said, I received the Bae and Ifa. I didn't receive the Marasa and Voodoo. But now that I kind of work with the Voodoo, and I understand really in essence, it represents the same thing. So it's funny. I look at my Bae now as the Marasa. So I'm starting to, because really the Marasa and the Bae, you give them the same offerings. They really represent the same spirits. They're child spirits, very powerful, can impart a lot of knowledge, wisdom, upon you, can, create a lot of solutions to problems, etc. They take the same type of offerings, candies. The party for the Marasa is almost the same thing you do for the Bae. So in essence, and I know the initiation, and from what I read in Voodoo and what I did in Ifa is not much different as far as the animals that were sacrificed, which I don't want to go through that shit again because, and in that ritual, and I don't know if they do that with the Marasa and Voodoo, the chicken that I killed for that ritual, I had to prepare and I actually ate it. I mean, it was cooked. I didn't eat it raw. It's not like palo where you bite the fucking head off of a chicken. But that chicken, the main chicken that you sacrifice, you sit in front of the Marasa or the Bae and you have to eat. You eat the chicken. It's prepared and cooked. But let me tell you something, man. And if those that know, when you eat a live chicken or organic chicken that's killed right there on the spot, that shit tastes nothing like the chicken you get in the grocery store. I can tell you that. And and those that have experienced know it's not the same taste. And the first thing I remember going through my mind, it made me realize how used to we are of those, meats that we eat that are injected with those preservatives and chemicals. I immediately noticed the difference in the taste. Immediately. So that's one thing that stood out to me, and it made me wondering what I've been eating all these years. But that's a whole nother story. Okay. Yeah, darker cult, Brother Ravana. No, I say darker cultist. That's a screen name. The after effects of the ritual is still resonating with me. And we always talk about that. And we've always talked about that at every ritual. And we tell people about that at every ritual. Because I'm telling you, I will get people emailing me about a ritual we did 6, 7, 8 months ago about an experience that they had way after the fact. Okay. Sister Trina types in, I'm getting what I asked for, and now I'm working with myself on a deeper level. Cool. All right. Oh, you did? Okay, yeah. I think Benitez talking about Benitez. Jesus, I'm tired of him. Jeez. The Hereditary movie. Yeah, I suggested to him. I texted him to watch it today. Watch that movie. And if you've seen it, Ravana, I know you ain't going to want to ruin it for them either. The only thing I revealed that is about King Payman, one of the Goetia, one of the 72 Goetia. I'm going to leave it at that. But if you haven't seen it, definitely go see it. It's crazy. It was good. It was a good movie. Really good movie. Emperor also saw it good. Dark Occultist typed in, Baphomet is that perfect symbol of androgyny and self-mastery. That's right. All right, we're almost at the end, people. Is he looking at our chat or another chat? I don't know if that's in reference to. That was Hey Debit. Hey Debit, he will answer once he gets to your question. He is scrolling down. Oh yeah. Yeah. I start from the top. If this is your first time in here, we go over the material, then I go to the way top of the chat. So if you came in late, you were probably at the bottom. Okay. Yeah, the Hereditary movie was good. Okay, darker cultists don't remind me of that torture and the EA degree. Yeah, I'm telling you, man. We went through it. I think Brother Duma, too, if I'm not mistaken, you went through it. I know Brother Jack did. He went through it. XJM Love, we are birthed and nurtured in the dark, and so is our magic, bringing it into manifest. A good point. Okay, yeah, he's not looking at the chat. All these questions answered. I'm not even in this chat. Okay. I might have skipped people. I'm at the bottom. I apologize. I didn't expect to be on this long. I definitely got to cut this. I am at the bottom now. Let me just see these last couple here. Trina, I had some damn good orgasm, but that was some brand new sex. Yeah, wow. There is that energy to a lot of these rituals, and we talked about it's naturally there. So if you tap into that, it's nothing to be. I'm speaking in general, not just to Sister Trina's comment. It's natural to have that, and it's there. So it's nothing to be quiet about. It's there. It's natural. I mean, as I said before, that's one of the many elements that you experience in these rituals. But some people, they'll tap into one more than the other. Yeah, I saw Trina at the end of the night. You did fall asleep at the restaurant. You was wide awake. That was me though. Same thing. When I got in the car and I was driving back to the house with Brother Ivana, my eyes were burning, man. And I was just trying to talk just to stay up with him to make sure. I mean, and he'll tell you as soon as I got into the house, I was gone. Like I say, he got up in the morning. I'm not a late sleeper, but he got up in the morning and left. I was still sleeping. I don't even remember him leaving, but he said something to my wife and told her he was leaving. She told me when I got up that he had left and just, said not to wake me up. I was out. I mean, everybody, now I've gotten the reverse from the rituals, and I know he had the reverse. He was like full of energy. I've gotten that aspect too. But I know when I do this type of ritual, when you're working with the spirits and you tap into them, and it takes a lot, to me, it takes a lot for me when they depart. So it's more of a recovery. Whereas if like the ritual we're getting ready to do at the end of this month, that one gives me more like extreme alertness and power. So it just all depends. Everybody taps into it differently. And that's why I said, you hear me? Everybody's going to have an individual and a collective experience. The collective experience is us vibing on the same level. So when the energy is good, where you can focus on having that individual experience, that's how you know you're tapped in. So that's what I mean when we say at a group ritual, you have the individual and the collective spirit experience simultaneously. So yes. But yeah, like I said, I was driving home with Ravana and I made sure we just kept talking because I'm never usually that tired. Like I could have literally fell asleep while I was driving. But I wasn't afraid of falling asleep, but I just know my body. You understand what I'm saying? And I know once I came in, boom, hit the bed. Put it this way, and I'm not the heaviest of sleepers. I don't even remember falling asleep. That's how heavy I slept that night. So, Trina types in, yes, most definitely in good hands. I felt secure and very safe with all that protective masculine energy around me. Yeah, and what did I say before? We made it clear to everybody before the ritual. Whatever happens. Let it just flow. You're not going to get hurt. Trust me, when you're working in connection with the spirit, no matter how crazy something feels or comes on, go with it because you're not going to get hurt. If you're worried more about getting hurt or something going wrong, then you're gonna disconnect from, or you're not going to be able to connect with the full experience of it. Because you're more focused and your energy is more focused on, I feel something coming. I don't want to start doing this. I might fall or get hurt or this might happen. No, when you're locked in, you're locked in. There's always somebody there. Whatever's going on with somebody else, there's always something. I can't even describe it. It's the strangest thing. There's always somebody there alert and knows what's going on, vice versa. You know what I mean? Same thing with Sister Sonia. So when Sister Sonia catches it, she goes off. It's like she's in the shadow, like you could see her. But I just know that she's locked in. She's looking down. All you see is like dreads everywhere. And she's like in her own little shadow box somewhere, for lack of a better word. She's there, but she's not there. Like it seems like even though she's over there, she's miles away. It's weird. It's the best way I could describe it. Okay. Gypsy Goddess, man, you better get the fuck out the house, man. You're going to vegetate. I'm going to make sure I get plenty of energy. You're very light. I've never done this. Wow. All right. That's it. I'm at the end. Again, the book was Cavendish. Let me make sure I spell his name right. I'm probably going to do another piece out of this book, possibly on the next video next week. Again, make sure I'm giving you the right name. Definitely get this book. Hold on. Okay, The Black Arts by Richard Cavendish. Cavendish. That's what it looks like. This is it on Scribe. All right, The Black Arts. And he really deals, you saw what we discussed in the beginning. He really gives a good methodology on approaching the aspect of the black magician and his universe. And like I say, everything that came from the Papa Legba ritual, Papa Legba is the great magician. You understand? So this is the path. So it led me to just randomly pick this up the next night. Bam. And this is where we're getting ready to go at the end of the month. So I would go ahead and look into that book. And again, look for probably the next day or two until we officially get this date for this week and next week. Look for the email for the show on Thursday. Again, but we're going to start earlier. We're going to start at 8 o'clock. We're not going to do the 9 o'clock thing. We're going to start at 8 o'clock. And we will go from there. All right, that's all I got for you people. Peace, love, and hair grease. Gypsy Goddess, stop bullshitting. Get out the house. If you need a ride from somebody, you need to get in touch with somebody. Excuses are like assholes. Everybody got one. No, let me stop. Don't take it personal. I'm just having fun. Anyway, that's about it. I'll talk to you people sometime on the next one. All right? Peace.